Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about, well, everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. We're back at it with the third region of our increasingly misnamed March Madness wrestler brackets, this time covering the first decade of the 21st century, the 2000s. I really shouldn't have to mention that, but I mean, quite honestly, let's face it, the interwebs has gotten increasingly stupid over the last couple of years, so I just need to tell you that, hey, by the way, the 21st century starts with the 2000s. Anywho, it was a time of dying promotions, new up-and-coming upstarts, and indies here, there, and everywhere. Who's going to emerge out of this region? Well, we'll find out in this episode 130, Ruthless Bracket Progression. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who originally pioneered the spinner belt back in 1980 due to a shortage of Elmer's glue. He has been my partner in Idiocy for over 2 decades and is the grand champion of arts and crafts time. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, sir. How are you?
I am doing quite well, and yourself, sir?
I'm well. I didn't have a witty wrestling one-liner because I was trying to think through this decade, and I'm trying to think what those one-liners would be.
I thought you were just going to make a joke about eating paste from the arts and crafts bit. I tried to serve that one up to you, but you didn't take the bait.
No.
Kudos to you for not taking the
And the 2000s were called the aughts, sir.
Yes, and I have actually heard someone refer to them as the naughty oddies.
Good Lord.
I know, but in reference to wrestling, which I was like, okay.
Oh, boy.
Because I guess something has to come after the Attitude Era. They had to wind down in some way because then they went like totally PG-13 sort of thing.
Yeah.
But hey, anyways, we're going to talk about them.
I could have done the old John Cena Ruthless Aggression.
Yeah, we'll hear from the doctor of thugonomics later on.
Or good old Triple H doing the evolution will pass you by, but that doesn't quite have the same sort of zip to it. So
no, we don't need the discount 4 Horsemen either right now.
No.
We'll get there. The off-price outlet 4 Horsemen will come along.
Discount 4 Horsemen. They were an interesting lot, the 4 of them.
That is true. Discount 4 Horsemen was what? Flair, Lex Luger, like the 4
Steve,
Horsemen
Mongo, McMichael.
Oh, jeez.
Good God.
What would be the worst 4 Horsemen lineup that you could come up with and still have Ric Flair?
Oh, this is an interesting challenge. So you have Flair, but you got to fill the other 3 in.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, obviously Luger's got to be there.
Luger's there.
And Mongo is there too. So I mean, basically you're trying to find the 3rd. And I would actually vote Sting.
I was gonna vote Foley.
Foley?
Cactus Jack. Who would be more out of place in the 4 Horsemen than Cactus Jack?
Well, no, they got to be part of the 4 Horsemen. They had to have been a horse. I mean, like out of all the members of the 4 Horsemen.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant if you could pick any 3 guys.
No. I'm talking about 4 Horsemen members.
Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious was, or Sid Justice was a horseman at one point, and not a very good one.
Yeah, so your 3 pretty good. I would actually go with Sting, if only just because it's such a mismatch. Like his gimmick just does not fit. When you think about the original 4 Horsemen and just kind of like these 4 dudes who look like they could be hanging out in a garage and also kick your ass.
I think Jeff Jarrett was a horseman at one point.
Oh, never mind. I'll take Jarrett right there. Never mind. I can't. I flip flop on my flip flop. Then
yes,
totally, Jarrett.
2000s, sir. 2000s. What a decade for wrestling. Vince had to invent competition for himself.
Yes, this was the beginning of we had brand splits, we had the revival, we had the death of ECW, the resurrection of ECW, the death of ECW, and then another resurrection of ECW before the final death.
But it should be noted, it was very just interesting. WCW and ECW folded not too long after one another. I mean, like the wrestling industry as a whole went through a major retraction or if, I don't know if it's retraction.
Contraction, I believe.
Contraction, thank you. Yeah, when they both folded, and you went from 3 wrestling companies down to 1, and they don't need everyone, so it's going to be. It was an interesting time. It was an interesting time.
And the funny part is ECW outlasting WCW, a company funded by a major corporation and a millionaire with plenty of money. And somewhere Paul Heyman takes just a little bit of pride in that. I mean, sure, he had to screw over everybody in order to pull it off. But
Paul's running around with a bunch of IOU Post-it notes everywhere.
oh yeah. Like if it were a John Wick movie, everyone would have one of those markers that has like Paul Heyman's bloody thumbprint. That's like, oh, by the way, Paul. Oh, another one. All right, fine. What do I have to do? That sort of thing.
That is funny.
But yeah, no, it was an interesting time. But before we get to that, we do this week. We are going to actually get back to our regular format, and we are going to talk about things otherwise than our main topic. Last week was a bit of an aberration. It was really therapy, is what it was. Talking about
Uncle Todd had to get some things off of his chest.
I did, and you know what? I didn't feel that.
It was hard times.
It was hard times, baby. It was hard times. Just having to talk about the mustache and all the things going on. Hard times. But anyways, we are going to bring back my personal favorite segment of the show, because I quite honestly do nothing for this except just flap my gums. No research, no nothing. It's great. It's like a little mini vacation for me. So, sir, what do we got for the Week in Geek?
The Week in Geek.
Feels so funky.
Our Week in Geek, sir, is 120% Star Wars Celebration news. So
perfect.
We had Star Wars Celebration that took place over the weekend. The dates were the 7th, Friday, April 7th through Monday, April 10th. And there were quite a few very interesting announcements, but I think the one that will focus probably most of our time on will be a certain teaser trailer for a certain show that is coming out, I believe, in August. And will potentially, not potentially anymore, will have the live debut.
Yes.
Star Wars version of Hard Times. Grand Admiral Thrawn, folks.
It will be hard times for the Rebellion and the Republic, isn't it? Hard times, because you got the one competent Imperial officer that has ever apparently worked on a Star Destroyer.
Yes.
Coming to the Star Wars universe.
Yes. Finally, the Grand Admiral comes back to the galaxy.
That would be great. If you smell what I'm cooking.
Captain Pelion.
Yes.
Bring me my pipe.
Yeah. Gosh. What do you think Thrawn's like smoking jacket would look like? I think it would actually look exactly like the uniform. It would just be puffier.
I think so too. I think his uniform is a smoking jacket. So
yeah, actually kind of would work.
I don't think we've ever seen, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I think the ISB in Andor we saw in white uniforms, but typically they're in, more grayish and darkish colors. So,
yes. But we have a trailer for Ahsoka.
We do have a trailer. So we're going to do this in live action, real time.
Yes. So I'm going to put this in our outline right now so that I remember to actually link this in the show notes, but it will be in the show notes. So you can click on that and get it all to zeros, and we'll count down. We'll all watch this together as a group,
yes.
as a family.
Indeed.
All right. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play.
Some sort of temple or ruin, temple ruin. Something dark is coming. I love this.
Oh yeah,
that was cool. The lightsaber twist, cut your hole and then fall down into the underground.
Which actually didn't Luke do that in one of those book series?
He might have. Oh, Sabine.
Oh yeah.
Which means I got to get through Rebels before this. There's Hera, Chopper,
played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
I'm kind of wondering if that's Mara Jade.
I don't know. Maybe.
She hasn't been identified. So Sabine and Ahsoka. Hey, there's Mon Mothma again.
Yep.
Hasn't aged a day.
Oh,
There he is. Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
She said the thing. She said the thing.
Bam.
I want to know who this dude is.
That guy,
Empire George Clooney.
he reminds me, like I sent you the picture, but he looks an awful lot like this major Sith Lord from the Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if he is him or not. Or I've heard rumors. Oh, there we go. Jedi Outcast Rebel and Jedi. Phenomenal. Perhaps it is time to begin again.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is how you do a trailer.
That was a darn impressive trailer, if I do say so myself. August, coming in August, on the Plus.
That's two things I can look forward to in August now.
Nice.
Got my, well, I mean, other than family time, but I got a good concert to go to, and I got a Ahsoka to watch. Life is good. Life is good.
To close close the loop on that thought I had about that other evil Jedi looking dude. But wondering if he will be kind of the Jorah Sabath character from Heir to the Empire.
I could see that.
Either him in person or as a clone. So.
Oh, you mean Jorus Sabath?
Yes, Jorus Sabath.
Jeez,
can't have enough quotes in that name. So
yeah, enough views.
Oh, I got to tell you, dude. As soon as I saw the back of Thrawn, I'm like, finally,
yes, yep.
Been waiting for this forever. I still contend. I don't remember if I said this a few episodes ago, but let's assume I have. I still contend that I think the end of Mando season 3 is going to be a face view of Thrawn. Like, we are going to see Thrawn, and it's going to be the tease to whet the appetite to get us all teed up for August. So
it would make sense because they did that with Boba Fett.
Yep.
As a springboard. I mean, it makes sense to spin stuff off of Mando because even as much as people weren't necessarily joyful about Book of Boba Fett, it's still pretty successful, and the character came out of, they spun it out of Mando, and of course they also then they turned around, it was like a spin-off of a spin-off, because then they used mid-season Book of Boba Fett to spin you into season 3 of Mando, which I was like, okay, that's kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
So it totally makes sense to have, especially where Ahsoka has appeared in Mando, totally makes sense for her to show up again, or for characters from that universe to kind of show up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'd be totally into that. I mean, we've only got 2 more episodes here of Mando, which hurts because I've been digging the hell out of this season.
And once again, I have no idea what the fan base is complaining about.
Are people complaining about Mando season 3? Really?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Too much focus on Bo-Katan, not enough focus on Mando, Grogu. This, I mean, it's just like,
Once again, Star Wars fans,
it.
You can't please them.
I scroll past it. I take it in. I enjoy it. I enjoyed Jack Black and Lizzo. I enjoyed Christopher Lloyd. I enjoyed that they had a little mini mystery. Guess what? That's what the video games are like. That last episode we just saw where they went on a little mission to fix the droid thing, that's exactly what Star Wars The Old Republic is like. So if you want to go play a video game, guess what? That's what it is. So don't complain about it.
Well, and season 1 was like that.
Absolutely.
There was a little side quest that happened during season 1 and season 2. But that has been this show.
But this one felt really like, when I watch it, I'm like, okay, this feels like when I go down in my basement and play around Star Wars Old Republic. I'm like, that's what it feels like, like I agree with you. They've done it as well in season 1, but it always felt like those stories were a little more like, even though they were side quests, they were still germane to what he was doing. And this was just literally a side quest to just get them access to the Mandalorians. And so
the damn Germans ain't got nothing to do with it. Oh, I just started watching Smoking the Bandit this past weekend because it came up on like one of the streaming services. I'm like, well, I've got to watch at least a few minutes of this.
But no, I'm very, very excited for this series.
Oh yeah,
a lot of so for the listeners, if you go back and watch it, and if you go back, what episode are we in Mando, or is it 6 or 7? I don't remember.
I believe we're in 7, and we
7. Okay.
Oh no, it's we're coming up on 7 and then 8 because it's only 8 episodes. So Picard is 9 episodes. I keep getting those mixed up. So
right.
Mando's 8 episodes per season. So yeah, we just had episode 6. So we got 7 and 8 coming up in the next week. 2 weeks here.
I see. Okay. But I think it was 1 or 2 episodes from where we are right now. We had Zeb, who was in Rebels, and now there's going to be heavy Rebel. It seems like this is also, even though it's Ahsoka, it's kind of like the live action like Rebels show.
Oh, totally.
And which makes sense because, you know, I as what led to all of this in Mando season 2, Ahsoka is journeying to find Ezra Bridger, or at least that's the kind of presumption we made when she uttered the line, "Where's Grand Admiral Thrawn?" Because where Thrawn is, Ezra should also be, given what happened at the end of Rebels, and so so it'll be interesting to see what, you know, how that all kind of comes together, and it's exciting to see. This is good stuff, and you know, I'm also happy just to see Star Wars going in this direction. Like Mando has been great. You know, it feels like it's time though to kind of explore beyond it. You know, and you know, Book of Boba Fett, I liked it as well. I thought it was a good. You know, I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I like the way they told the story, and I'm very excited to see where they take the story and how they start planting the seeds. I did read some articles that hinted at this may all, like, kind of the feeling I'm getting from articles I'm reading and what we're seeing here with the shows is that very indirectly or very, you know, in a very subtle way, they are essentially doing, I think, their version of the Infinity Saga, where they're building up these stories from different threads, and they're all going to at some point intertwine. And what I read was that there's going to be an Heir to the Empire movie. That I think they're going to bring all this together, and I don't know if it's going to be directly off of the novel or if it's just going to be kind of a, you know, them pulling nuggets out of, you know, the trilogy, the original trilogy, original Thrawn trilogy of books, but that has me excited.
Well, it would kind of make sense because obviously you don't have access right now to like Han, Luke.
Right.
Leia. I mean, especially Leia, of course. I mean, you could recast, and we've seen Mark Hamill willing to come back and do this, but I also wonder how effective is that, you know, to try and pull that off through a movie or anything like that? Or are you now introducing the Rebels characters to give you those characters to kind of play their part in some of this, and maybe Ahsoka replaces Luke in this story, and maybe Hera and they're replacing, you know, Han and all. I mean, I'd be up for that. Sure, why not? Reinterpret it, like do it completely different. I'm fine with that. Like
the main thing is I want Luke Skywalker to get his damn cocoa.
Oh God, that cocoa!
I want him to get his cocoa,
gosh.
His hot chocolate. All right,
that was just one of those things where I'm reading it and I'm like, you got to be kidding me with this.
Also, I hope we have Luke.
I hope we don't. I hope we don't.
Uncle Todd's a big fan of Luke's clone, so
nope. No. I'm not don't have a problem with the clone. I hate how the fact that the way that you distinguish a clone from the real person is they have to have a U in their name, and then you add a second U. Like everyone turns into a vacuum cleaner, you know, that sort of thing.
Kind of makes you wonder why they just didn't call him, like, you know, clone number 1, you know? Like why call him Luke?
Because it's not sci-fi enough.
I don't know.
Call
him Death from Above.
But anyways, Ahsoka, 2 thumbs up. Way up so far.
Way up. Absolutely. And then just a couple other, you know, just announcements that were of interest. The Acolyte, which will be the first live action series based in.
Oh wait,
yes.
wrong Acolyte.
Cue the music. Come on. You know. Bam, 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 bam.
Wouldn't that be great if they got Ron Simmons? Like, there's some like we find out like one of the Star Wars people is a huge WWE fan, and so just you have this acolyte thing going on, and just like Ron walking in the background.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Or, to end one of the episodes, they reveal some twisty plot thing or something, and he walks up with this hooded figure walks up, he pulls the hood back, and just looks at the camera. Damn.
That would be perfect. It would amuse us, no one else, but it would just amuse us.
Be like, who is that guy? Is he, if you want to confuse the Star Wars fan base, bring in Ron Simmons in a hood and do that. Be like, what? Who is that, and why did he say that? There must be a deeper meaning.
Nope, there isn't.
That's just what Ron does, folks.
Nope, that's it.
But yeah, it'll be based in the High Republic era, which they're like right now. There's actually, I believe, some novels that have come out based in that timeline or in that time frame. But this show will take place around 100 years before Phantom Menace, and we will learn how the Sith began to infiltrate the Republic. So that's exciting. It's exciting.
Let's hope it's a little more interesting than tariffs and trade guilds.
Yeah, Uncle Todd's not going to let me live that one down. Went to the midnight showing of Phantom Menace, and the next day he's like, I can't believe I went to a movie at midnight and it was about a trade dispute.
Yeah.
It's like, what have you done to me?
It's not even like a decent history class. It was like sci-fi history.
Yes. We also had 3 Star Wars movies announced. Dave Filoni and company announced a few. Kathleen Kennedy and a few others announced some exciting news. There's going to be one called Dawn of the Jedi. James Mangold is going to be directing it, and it will be based in an era that happened 25,000 years before the Skywalker saga.
And somehow Skywalker will still be in it.
Yes. The Walker to Sky or something like that. But it will tell stories of the first Jedi, and it's an unexplored period in time. So the idea is the possibilities will be endless. Let's see. Dave Filoni will be in charge of culminating the stories of series like The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and the Book of Boba Fett with one movie that will feature a big and epic battle. I believe this is the rumored Heir to the Empire movie.
All in favor.
We already talked. What's that?
All in favor.
All in favor.
Yeah.
And then, in a big surprise, Daisy Ridley is coming back.
Yes.
Rey is returning.
Which is another. I'm sure there's plenty of Star Wars fans who are upset about that. I always enjoyed her. I always enjoyed Rey as a character. I enjoyed Daisy Ridley as an actor. Yeah. And I think that much like a lot of the characters and actors in that post-Quill trilogy, they got done no favors by the lack of direction and lack of, just any kind of consistency throughout those movies. So I'm all for it. As long as they're able to straighten everything out and make it coherent, and then maybe, you can't really get rid of any of it, but if they can make it look a little bit better in hindsight, I'm happy.
And basically, it'll be built around her creating a new Jedi Order 15 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, I think it's great to hear that they're just going with single standalone movies, not going in with the presumption of a trilogy. What I kind of hope happens, especially in the context of the Filoni movie, is I hope it really blows people away, and then people want more. And so if they do it right, and they're going to be thinking about this, like Dawn of the Jedi, that's when you could maybe do, several movies off of if you do it right. The Daisy Ridley one, I don't know about that, but the Filoni one, if it's truly something like Heir to the Empire, I hope they pace it the right way so they could do a second or potentially a third if it's good. But I'm glad they're just doing one, and they're just going to, kind of see where that goes. But yeah. That's going to be like their Avengers Endgame, basically. So,
kind of, yeah. I mean, actually, I'd say it's more like the first or second Avengers movie, because Endgame really had so much buildup, and this is kind of their first attempt at doing anything like this.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I mean, because it's a lot to pull together, and it's a lot to keep straight, and a lot to retrofit. Because essentially, you're pulling Rebels, Mando, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to kind of pull together and get going in one direction, especially considering like Mandalorians were never mentioned in Heir to the Empire.
Yep.
Nada. So how are you going to massage this material, it will be very interesting. But
It will.
I am all in.
They little news about Skeleton Crew. That's another show that's going to be coming out. Tales of the Jedi second season, Andor season 2. So this one here, real quick. So second season will last 12 episodes. Every 3 episodes, a time skip of 1 year will happen, and the series will conclude right after Rogue One.
Oh, interesting.
So that is very interesting.
Are you right after or right before?
It says right after Rogue One, which makes me wonder if we see kind of the, memorial service, if you will, for Andor because of how Rogue One ends.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because, really, Rogue One takes you right to the beginning of episode 4.
Yes. Yep.
So, there's almost no time in between those. It kind of leads me to believe, when are you even going to mourn the dead at that point?
Right. Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. So, all right. Anything else, sir, you want me to pull from this? Turn the Jedi back in cinemas for the 40-year anniversary.
That's right. That's the end of this month, isn't it?
Yeah. Phase 3 of the High Republic book series I was talking about. Star Wars Visions Volume 2. Ooh, Bad Batch final season.
I have fallen so far behind on Bad Batch.
Yeah, I have too.
Trying to keep up on Mando and Picard has been a full-time job for me, along with just not going insane.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And then it looks like the 2025 Star Wars celebration will be in Japan. So,
oh boy, Jimmy Dice got to go make sure he's keeps his passport updated for that.
Re-up the passport, ladies and gentlemen.
He's going to be saving some shekels for that one because that's a haul.
I don't think he's doing the 72-hour hard and fast. So,
yeah, that's just a flight.
All right. Well, that's all we got on Star Wars Celebration. A lot of exciting stuff. And that, my friends, is a Star Wars-centric week in Geek.
Well, thank you once again to the man they call Tim for diving into the minutia of the internet, for wading through the piranha-filled waters of the interwebs and pulling forth, I don't know, some stuff. But thank you for doing that, and always fun to talk some Star Wars. But now we're going to get into some serious business where everybody agrees. Professional wrestling, the business of the business. Yeah,
giving them the business.
So we're going to be dealing with our third region of our March Madness. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
It's turning into more of the NBA playoffs. We'll be done in June sometime. So
yeah, we had some rest days in there. So, but we're in our third division, which is the aughts, the 2000s. So from what are we calling this? Like 2000 to 2009? Are we 2001 to 2010?
2001 to 2010.
Okay, that actually makes some sense. As much sense as anything that we do, quite honestly.
Indeed.
So we are dealing with some luminaries. We are also dealing with, and quite honestly, right up front, we are dealing with a period of time where I don't think either one of us was watching. I certainly wasn't watching wrestling on any kind of a regular basis. I was totally out at this point. I was not even vaguely paying attention to wrestling.
Right.
So I don't know where you were at. So this is like I'm flying an airplane blind at this point.
I was watching the shows. I wasn't watching the pay-per-views, and I probably wouldn't be watching the pay-per-views now if not for streaming, because I just didn't. When this was back during the time when we still had cable boxes.
Yep.
And I just never really had a desire to, once I ironically, during the time when I had the least amount of money is when I got the pay-per-view. So,
well, because you saved on the pizza because we got the Papa John's.
Oh, that's right. But no, I didn't have the itch to do the pay-per-views. I was pretty content with Raw and SmackDown, and that was pretty much my wrestling view. But I watched for most of the 2000s, and then that's when I started to drift away a little bit. It started to lose, the stories weren't compelling. I really wasn't. Kind of towards the end of the 2000s is when I started to drift, and it was more of watching from the periphery. I was, just monitoring on the internet, and then, when NXT started up in, the early 2010s, that NXT is what kind of pulled me back because it was really reminding me of that time, like in the 90s with ECW and with WCW and that sort of thing. And so, but the 2000s were really a time when wrestling went into some uncharted waters. WCW and ECW both folded in really the first quarter of 2001, and it left WWE as the sole brand for sports entertainment. Stone Cold and The Rock would wrestle in the early part of the decade, but quite honestly, by 2004-ish, I'll look at that when we go through the names. But it was kind of like almost like by the mid part of the decade, Stone Cold retired and Rock was off to Hollywood. And so
I thought it was like 2000. Rock made it a little bit longer than Austin, didn't he?
Let's check it out. I'm pretty sure by 04-05 he was on a much reduced schedule, if not done, because his movie career was taken off big time. So, but ECW and WCW talent folded into WWE. And then we saw a reboot of ECW under the WWE banner in the mid 2000s. We also saw the independent wrestling scene heat up with Ring of Honor, and the Jeff and Jerry Jarrett, or as I call it, Triple J, created total nonstop action impact in the mid 2000s. But really, the independent scene would really end up defining what we're going to talk about in our next episode, which is the 2010s, because all of the stars of that decade really kind of came out of this era. This is when Kevin Owens was coming up. This is when Sami Zayn is coming up, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, depending on what day it is, Seth Rollins. So just a lot of talent was really kind of growing during this time. And so therefore a lot of those names are left out in the cold. So there is no CM Punk debuted about mid 2000, but when you consider breadth of work and major impact, it really wasn't until the 2010s, early 2010s that he made the biggest splash. He had a good career, but again, we're trying to measure, a limited number of superstars and what they did and their impact on that decade. And so, him, Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston, Bill Goldberg, Trish Stratus, Lita, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Bubba and Devon Dudley, Diamond Dallas Page, Umaga. Diamond Dallas Page, I pulled in because he was involved in the early 2000s with The Undertaker.
But that was such a weird angle.
It was.
That was not totally like, that was another one of those like, hey, let's embarrass the guy who worked for the competition angle.
Yeah. Umaga, who was just kind of a strange phenomenon that happened, but he was pushed to the moon, and he was actually kind of an interesting character, but just very unconventional and very different. Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, Cody Rhodes. This is when he would be growing, and when he would be, basically as a rookie growing, through the business and trying to cut his teeth and become something. And he went through a lot of iterations during that time. The Miz, John Morrison, Taz. This one hurt. I really wanted to get Taz in here, but it was with all the big names. It's really hard to get everyone. So
the thing is, his impact in WWE is negligible. Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, it's too bad, really, that they didn't know how to use him necessarily, and then eventually he just broke down.
Yeah, I mean, he was a lot like Vader or like Yokozuna. He had an early jump where he debuted against Kurt Angle in a very, very, and we should post this in the show notes. If you ever want to see a crazy good debut,
oh yeah,
Taz in Madison Square Garden against Kurt Angle was just incredible. I mean, the crowd was just so into it, and there were rumors. I mean, this is when wrestling was super fun, when you were wondering, if a guy was going to debut from another organization or not. But Taz has the distinction of wrestling on one night. He wrestles and defeats Mike Awesome, who was ECW champion, defected, went to WCW, and they needed to get the belt off of him. They went to Taz. Vince basically loaned Taz to ECW. He wins the ECW World Championship, and then like 1 or 2 nights later goes on SmackDown Live as the ECW champion and wrestles Triple H for the WWF Championship.
Yeah.
Which was just the coolest thing to see him walk down with that belt.
Well, it's amazing because it is one of those things that will never happen again. It's like, a WCW contracted wrestler fighting a WWF contracted wrestler in an ECW event for the ECW championship.
Yes.
That set of circumstances is so stupidly specific. It is. It's like, it's one of those things like you just don't believe it happened. Sort of like, I didn't realize this happened. Here's something that there was actually a battle in World War II where Germans and Americans fought together.
Really? Oh,
I'll have to look it up and get the specifics, but I know that it happened. I heard, I saw it, and I'm like, how is that not a movie? And then of course I went through and I'm like, oh, and the story has been optioned for a movie, and it's just sitting in development hell. But I was like, dear God, how is that not a movie? Like, who wouldn't want to be like, okay, I got to see what happened to make this a thing, but it's one of those things, like it's one of those weird little wrinkles in history where you're like, okay, well, it's definitely not going to happen again. It's so odd that you're like, oh, interesting. But then to have him go fight Triple H, who was interesting, because there was a point in time when stuff like that would happen on the shows, and you would actually wonder if something was going to happen. Like I remember there was that time when Taka Michinoku wrestled Triple H for the championship. Yes. Yeah. And I was watching it and I'm like, I actually think he might have a chance at winning. Like, this is like way too competitive. What's going on? Yeah. Like, are they deciding to go in a completely different direction here? Yeah. And of course he didn't, but
there was a lot of really, really interesting things that happened in like 99 through like 01, 02 with wrestling that was just, you never thought you'd see. Yeah. And that's a great example of when Taz is another. Shane McMahon showing up on WCW TV was another. But to finish out our list, Dolph Ziggler, Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, James Storm, and Raven. The last 5 names. Raven had a stint in WWE. He also was one of the first to start in TNA Impact with Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, and James Storm. They are kind of 4 of the
Are you talking
big
about
stars.
Lance Storm?
No, James Storm. He was called not the Wildcat. He was called. I loved his entrance song. He was in TNA only. I think he debuted once in NXT, but they didn't pick up a contract with him. But his theme music would, I think it was just called the Cowboy James Storm. But his theme music would start, "Sorry about your damn luck." I love the beginning of that song.
All right, I'm gonna have to look that up.
But anyways, so that's who we've had to leave out. The folks that we have included, which is quite a list. So we got 25 here. So we're going to go, not surprisingly, the Undertaker, of course, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, once again, Kane, or as I like to call him, Isaac Yankem 2.0, Shawn Michaels, Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy we're including here. He had a run of significance, toward sounded like the Emperor there. Someone of significance.
Yeah, and infamy as well.
And infamy. Triple H, Randy Orton, John Cena, Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho, Edge, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, Batista, Mick Foley, The Big Show, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, Christian, Matt Hardy, Mark Henry, Brock Lesnar, Taz, and JBL.
Wait, you said you didn't include Taz.
Oh, looks like I included Taz. Never mind. I guess I should take him off.
Yeah, he made it.
Oh, folks, let me tell you.
It's been a day. Today has been one hell of a week for the man they call Tim. So, and unfortunately, I wish I could have helped out with this, but Tim is the man who runs the brackets for this. This is his baby, so I did not want to interfere. I didn't even know Folks, I could help and interfere.
I set the bracket up last night, and then I realized there were some names like JBL, like Taz, like a few others that I went back and forth on. Finally included them. Didn't make a copy for poor Uncle Todd, and so he goes and fills out an older version of the bracket. I'm just like, what is wrong? I felt good about it
too. I went through, I did some research and all that, and now all of that out the window. And I'm
so sorry,
flying by the seat of my BVDs right now. So we'll see.
Well, you and me both, because I didn't fill it out either. So
but you got a lot more knowledge on this. I got to try and remember all the Wikipedia crap I just read like this afternoon, and we know how that works. I barely remember what I had for lunch today.
I didn't drop any names out. I think it was just purely additive changes.
But I'm trying to keep all that straight. Are you kidding me? I got 3 brain cells left, and they're all fighting.
Drink more seltzer. You'll be good. All All right, are you ready, sir?
Not really, but hey, let's kick this pig into gear.
All right, here we go. So this is going to be the play-in bracket, which is comprised of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh my God, 18 names in the play-in bracket, ladies and gentlemen.
Because ever since when Tim thought each one of these were going to be a 64-person bracket, he's just trying to keep bumping them up like every time. Our first bracket was actually a regular bracket, and ever since then, just mayhem, ladies and gentlemen.
I know it's hard, you know.
It's hard time trying to whittle these down.
I'm telling you, it's a hard decision.
It's a hard time. You're a plumber's son. You know, sometimes you just don't know where the poo is spewing out. That's
good Lord.
Oh, sorry. I took the plumber's thing there and went like a left turn there. Anyways.
All right. So our first play-in round match is John Cena versus JBL. Cena versus JBL. So John Cena debuts in 2002 as the Doctor of Thugonomics and is really credited with really kind of kicking off what was referred to as the Ruthless Aggression era of WWE. This is the transition from the Attitude Era of the late 90s into something new. And, really, he was quite an interesting character coming down to the ring and just freestyling on his opponent and in a way that was probably not the most family-friendly sort of thing. But
No, a lot of that is not replayed heavily on WWE Network stuff.
No, not at all. But it did help to establish him. He would come down in, his garb would either be, I think when he was a heel, he would come down in garb that was either for like the sports team that was like the antithesis of where they were.
Oh yeah, total cheap heat. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, but he had a run through the 2000s. Really became known as the face that runs the place because he became WWE champion in I think in 2005 or 2004 2005, and then he didn't really look back from there. I mean, he was U.S. champion for a period in like 03, 04, but then WWE champion and really had a very memorable feud and match with John Bradshaw Layfield where he defeated him. Ironically, who he's up against. But that really established him as the champ, and really the world title just kind of orbits around him. After that, he loses it and wins it back. But all in all, he is the man. He had memorable feuds with Edge. Fought. Let's see, we had JBL, Edge. I'm just trying to find a couple of their names here as I do this in real time.
Well, he had a couple of reigns in the 2000s.
Oh yeah. Oh, he had several reigns. Reigns,
and they were. I mean, it looked like he held the belt for quite a while, both of the times.
Yep. Rob Van Dam was another one. Sean, let me see.
And also is one of those guys who he almost created a new subset of heat. Because even when he was on top, there was a lot of Cena sucks. Chance. And I love how when he had the match against Austin Theory at Mania, they were doing the, let's go Cena sucks back and forth. Like, and it's almost like Kurt Angle now. Like it's transcended this point when Kurt Angle comes out with his music and everyone chants, "You suck." It's in a loving sort of way. And even he gets a kick out of it. Like he's like, I can't believe I won a fracking gold medal, and this is my legacy. People chanting "You suck" in time to my entrance music. It's a weird old world, ain't it?
It is. But yeah, that's kind of where he landed. I mean, I'm not going to go through and do all of the.
Yes, please. We don't.
Randy Orton was the other one. I just want to mention.
Can't do
Randy
another 5-hour show. We just can't.
No. So yeah, just had and again, just to remind folks, what we're looking at is impact across the decade, and Cena has a resume and then some. On the other hand, we have JBL. And sorry, I'm kind of running ahead here. Did you want to say anything else about Cena?
No, keep on going. Keep on trucking, sir.
All right, so JBL, he enters into the 2000s still as part of the APA with Ron Simmons. He then goes into singles competition
and becomes Boss Hog. Apparently, I don't know how this worked, but
yeah, there's an APA reunion. But then I believe, let's see. Farouk disbanded the APA, leaves. Bradshaw turns heel. He becomes like this millionaire J.R. Ewing kind of character called JBL.
Actually, yeah, J.R. Ewing is a much better way of putting it.
Yeah, and was fantastic. I mean, he was just this obnoxious heel. He held the WWE Championship for over a year, I believe.
Yeah, it was very much like a Bob Backlund-esque run, though. It's one of those things like he got it because, well, who else we got?
Right. And that's the thing. When I say we were in uncharted waters this decade, Cena was kind of was an up and comer. It wasn't until Cena beats him for the title and really shines as kind of a franchise player now, like Hogan and Austin, and others, where it like that first part of the decade, it was kind of empty. Like there were a lot of great wrestlers, but there wasn't a standout that was like, he's the guy, he's the franchise.
Well, and he made a good guy to chase, because if you don't really have any of those like strong, like a Hogan character or Rock or whatever, it's always good to have just a baddie that everyone sort of like dislikes, but can get heat and everyone can chase him.
Yep.
And that just makes things more interesting. Yeah.
So by the time 2005 rolls around, he's mainly fighting for the U.S. Championship. He's lost to Cena. Cena is now running with the world title. Becomes a commentator, part-time wrestler from 06 to 08. During the ECW kind of reboot, I think he was one of the guys that was stoking the fires of WWE versus ECW and stuff like that.
Beat the hell out of the Blue Meanie at one.
I think so. Yeah. Let's see what else. Intercontinental champion in 08, somewhere between 08 and 2010. Intercontinental champion, and then he retires. Basically, let's see. Where is it?
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm just looking for a year. I think it was in 2010 that he that he finally retired. So kind of a strong start to the decade for him. And then he just kind of worked, and understandably so, and maybe looking back, this is what they were doing the whole time, but built up a really good, character as a heel champion. And then, really elevated Cena when they fought and allowed Cena to kind of take off with it. And then kind of ramped down his career from there. He held some secondary titles, started being a commentator, and then just kind of rode off into the sunset. So sir, JBL or John Cena, who are you advancing?
Got to go with the doctor of thugonomics here. John Cena.
I am inclined to agree with you, sir. I'm inclined to agree with you. So we will move John Cena forward in the first round of the play-in into the actual 16-man bracket. Oh God, the seltzer just creeps up on you.
Had enough seltzer that he actually belched up a deviled egg that he had last week.
Oh, no lie. All right. Next round, The Rock and Mark Henry. And this is interesting because of what we talked about before, because The Rock, let me see if I can...
he wasn't around very, very long, but I mean, it's, he's still The Rock. So it's like there's still a certain cachet. I'm pretty sure he still held the championship at one point because he had the big gold belt at one point.
He did have so he did hold the world title in the early 2000s, and he was a strongly booked champion. However, as I mentioned, he may have, let's see. Sorry, I'm just kind of skipping through here. He departed by 2004. He was out by 2004. So really 2001 to 2003 was when he reigned as champion. So kind of in a way, Rock and Austin were still around in that early part. So maybe they were just kind of the franchise during that time. And I just totally forgot about that. But
I think Rock was pretty strong, but Austin really wasn't near the title at that point. I think he was very much not a real competitor. Like he came out and he would kick someone's butt, but he wasn't out there taking bumps. Very much. I think this was the point when it was like he's punched most of the holes on his bump card. Because
he and Austin were pretty involved in the WCW versus WWE thing that they were doing.
But Austin was mostly a figurehead, and at one point, didn't they have like the gimmick with him was like he couldn't he couldn't get physical with a wrestler unless they attacked him first, so he had to like try and goad people into hitting him so that he could hit them, that sort of thing, which I mean is like one of those like dead giveaway, like we're trying to make sure you don't hurt yourself sort of things. And then Stone Cold retired in 2003 after WrestleMania 19, and that was that great match between him and Rock where he puts Rock over. But then Rock
it's not too much. It's not too long after that The Rock, really, wraps up his career. So,
well, and then he comes back for Cena. I think
that's not till 2011.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kicks it into the next decade.
Right. So, and then Mark Henry, on the other hand, is a different story because he's, throughout the late 90s, he's building up, his skill as a wrestler and finding his voice as an entertainer. And really, when he comes back in 2002, he's on the SmackDown brand, has feuds with Chris Jericho and Christian, feuds with let me see who else.
But he didn't. It was into the 2010s when he had his actual world title run. Correct?
No, it was the late. So he was ECW champion from 2007 to 2009.
Well, yeah,
was when he was heavily involved in ECW. Then he was a tag team champion in 2009 and 10. Yeah, you're absolutely right. World heavyweight champion doesn't happen until the 2010s.
See, some of that stuck from earlier today. I remembered that.
I yield to you as Sherpa. Don't, folks. We're going over the cliff.
Exactly. That's what's happening right there.
So Mark Henry, really, kind of finding his rhythm and his vibe and getting comfortable as, really a character, through middle through the end of the decade. And so really kind of rose to prominence and really went from being kind of a side gag, hey, this guy was an Olympian trying out, doing wrestling, to really becoming, someone who was relied upon, for producing some good big man matches and that sort of thing. And so what say you, sir, The Rock or Mark Henry?
I mean, the thing is, Mark Henry definitely gets slow and steady throughout the whole decade. He's active for most of the decade. He's there. He's in the mix. He's doing things. But it's one of those. It's the Hendrix versus I guess Clapton argument.
Mm-hmm.
Rock is still Rock, and I'll take 3 or 4 years, or 4 or 5 years of Rocky over 8 years of Mark Henry, having some decent feuds and middling, but it wasn't until really the next decade when he would finally get that push to become the big thing that they kind of thought he would be. So I'm going with The Rock here, even though, I mean, I'm like total amateur hour power lifter. Did you look at the powerlifting section of Mark Henry's Wikipedia?
I had to skip by it to talk about what I just talked about.
Okay. Personal powerlifting records that he holds.
Yes.
Squat. 953.5 pounds.
That's crazy.
Deadlift, 903.9 pounds.
Holy moly.
Both of those are records. Powerlifting total, 2,336.9 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his, apparently that was his record squat, plus a 518 pound bench press.
Mm-hmm.
Plus an 865 pound deadlift.
Yeah.
Kiss my grits.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah. It is.
But that has nothing to do with professional wrestling. Rock goes over in this one for me, because I'll take the big 5 years over a consistent 8 of middle to upper middle card.
Yeah.
Rock is still the Rock. You kind of have to hand that to him.
Yep. No,
how about you, sir?
I'm going to go with you on that. The Rock. I mean, when you come to longevity, Mark Henry gets the nod for the time. I don't know that it's as impactful, though. No. Do you take 4 years or 3 years of red hot Rock, who has just, amazing matches with everyone, Hogan, Austin. I mean, there isn't anyone. And then just as an amazing heel, I mean, he was doing some of his best promo work during this time. Mm-hmm. And, stack that up to Mark Henry, who, was working his way up. I mean, we'll have a different conversation about Mark Henry when it comes to the 2010s, though, because he makes a pretty big impression, in that early time when he holds the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, he brings an entire concept called the Hall of Pain, to bear on in WWE, and it is phenomenal. I mean, he was just a great monster, but that was not this decade, unfortunately. So
no, it was not.
So the Rock it is. All right. Next one, Jeff Hardy and Kane. So Jeff Hardy's interesting, because he had a run, of course, with Edge, Christian, and the Dudleys doing the TLC matches, which were just iconic and really broke the mold and set the bar at a very high level, for years to come in terms of entertainment and really just ladder matches as a whole. Those three teams just did some amazing stuff. But yeah, so Jeff had a run as Intercontinental European Champion. He left WWE in 2003. He went to Total Nonstop Action Wrestling from 2004 to 2006, where he was what was he called? The
Enigma?
Charismatic Enigma.
Yes.
Is what they called him. I don't know. I'm trying to see. I don't think he held the world title during this time, though. I think he competed for it, but he did not win it.
Yeah. And that was also when wasn't that during the time when he basically, they shoved him out through the curtain to wrestle Sting, and he was he barely could stand.
Sadly, that was in 2010.
Okay. I couldn't remember which TNA run it was.
That's the next decade. But he was a very, very popular presence on that show, and they did build some very good matches around him. He just never really was booked to win those titles. Just trying to see what else. And then he comes back to WWE in 2006. He reunites with Matt. They do their thing. Let's see. I think they were in ECW for a period, the rebooted ECW for a period of time.
Yeah, he's one of like a billion ECW champions, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, I believe he was ECW champion for a period.
At this point, I'm surprised I wasn't ECW champion and I just forgot about it.
We should have tried for that, my friend.
Everybody
We should have tried for that. He was the Intercontinental Champion, 2007 to 2008 during that period. And then really, his name gets on here because he did build up in popularity to such a degree that he was crowned WWE champion, and did have a good title reign. And so, he had some great matches with Edge. Let's see. Trying to think who else. Yeah, Triple H. I did fight CM Punk. Who else? So yeah, really Jeff's story goes and throughout, like you're mentioning, though, I think part of the shifts that you saw from WWE to TNA back to WWE were related to, I think, some of his issues with substance abuse and what was going on there. There was always that kind of question of trust with him as a talent, but he seemed to make a good impression when he came back, and so worked his way up to WWE Championship reign, and then went back to TNA in 2010. So that is Jeff Hardy. Kane, on the other hand, the 2000s for him, saw him becoming more of a really went in a lot of different directions. He unmasks, so we get the actual unmasked Kane. And the storylines that come from that. He was world tag team champion with Rob Van Dam for a period of time, which I'd totally forgotten about. What else? He fell in love. He had a storyline where he fell in love with Lita, and that led to some, tomfoolery between Kane and Matt Hardy, who we'll talk about later. Teamed with the Big Show, winning the tag champs. Tag straps. What else? And then later in the decade, he goes on to be ECW champion and then world heavyweight champion. So he did have a run with the title then. So really Kane kind of sees his presence just kind of, he pivots his character and he changes over time and sees the character, broaden and get depth and really have a lot of, he has a lot of really good storylines, becomes kind of a foundational, talent for WWE. So both of these guys had I would say strong decades for this period. But who are you giving the nod to on this one?
For this one, it's tough because Kane is one of the lasting characters, and he was a kind of a Swiss Army knife, and was one of those deals where, hey, you need a monster, you need someone to do this, you need someone to do that. All right, just throw Kane in there. But unfortunately, in this matchup, he's going up against a guy who was just hitting his stride in his career with the TLC matches as a part of the Hardy Boys, and he was always the guy taking the big bump.
Yep.
He was the guy who really brought a lot of that stuff that guys were doing an ECW on a night-by-night basis, but no one was doing it in WWE, WWF.
Yep.
So he was the guy who was doing that. And then you add in the title run at the end of the decade. It's just an innovation that you have to kind of give some credit for. And unfortunately, Kane is one of those guys who he is always going to be, in some ways, like the bass player of the main event scene in WWE, WWF. Like he was there. He was important. He was an important piece to have there, but he just never is going to stand out the way that the others do. In a way, he's like the Michael Anthony, if you will, of the main event scene. He needs to be there. He played an important part, but you're always going to be paying more attention to, Undertaker, to Austin, to Raw,
right?
Stuff like that. But in this instance, I have to give it to Jeff Hardy for the innovative aspect of his career.
All right. Jeff Hardy.
How about you, sir?
Advance. Yeah, I go back and forth on this one because, Kane just gets stronger over time, and it's a hard one. Jeff Hardy, this is one of these even matches where it's how do you rate, impact, you know what I mean? And you made some very good points. You're right. Kane is one of those, JR likes to call him, he's a good hand, kind of thing. And he's always relied upon to deliver, entertaining segments and matches. But I feel like, he also really was working his way up to being, someone who then stepped into that world title picture, as a, a serious contender. And so, based on those things, it pains me to do it because I am a big Jeff Hardy fan, but I'm going to go with Kane on this one.
Which makes sense. I mean, the thing that the thing that works against him in being that good hand, and it goes to, you talk about a guy like Nolan Ryan, and you're like, well, he lost almost as many games as he won in his career. Well, you're just that damn good. You get rolled out there all the time. You're gonna take losses. You're a good hand, and you're just someone that you're dependable, can go out there. You're gonna get booked in some shady stuff because you're like, well, this might. I don't know if this is gonna work, but hey, if we put Kane in there, maybe it'll work. And then you're like, nope, it ain't gonna work with nobody. You could put Bruno Sammartino out there, and it ain't gonna work. So he definitely had some misses. Yeah. But you don't get put out there for those unless you're good. You don't have that longevity. So I can totally understand that choice.
Yeah. All right. Our next matchup is Stone Cold Steve Austin, the mutual winner of the 90s wrestling bracket, against one Chris Jericho.
Yes.
So I'm actually going to go kind of quick with Austin for one very simple reason. He really just has a 2-year stint in this decade, and then he's done. So
he really is getting into this list just on legacy.
Basically, yeah. I mean, an argument could be made that we could have dropped him out, but he does have a big impact when he's still around. I mean, he's still around the world title picture. He's a major part of the Alliance, storyline with going up against WCW. There was also, I believe, during this time was the heel turn with Vince McMahon for a period of time. Triple H and Austin formed the this crazy tag team. I forget what they called themselves.
The two-man power trip.
The two-man power trip, where then Triple H tears the quad right off the bone.
Another quad tear, another week.
Another quad tear, another week. Absolutely.
Which was actually Uncle Corny mentioned that on his podcast when he was talking about the Shane McMahon segment, and mentioned about how every year now we're going to have a McMahon come down to the ring just so they can tear their quad and flop around like a fish. I'm like,
oh God, oh that's funny.
Yeah.
This was also the time when, and we'll talk about him later, Brock Lesnar is coming into the company, and they want to book Lesnar to basically route Austin on Raw, and this is where Austin kind of walks out for a period of time. Because and he explains this later on. He's explained it several times on his show, Stone Cold, Broken Skull Sessions. Of there was a time to do there's a time and the way to do the business. Like he wasn't against putting Brock over, but he he's like, this isn't the way to do it. You don't do, and I agree with him. Like, you don't do it on Raw. You build something up and do it on a pay-per-view. Like, that's what you should be building towards. And so there's a little bit of drama that happens with him. There's some drama with him. He was supposed to face Scott Hall when the NWO came back. That was kind of a weird, thing that happened there. I think, or he faced Scott Hall, but I think there was some drama going into that as well. I just think he was probably a guy who was kind of realizing where he was and kind of where his career was going, and maybe didn't deal with it well, but
yeah, maybe.
But we'll as he continues, he continues to have high profile, matches with Triple H and with Rock, and then of course has the the final match with The Rock, but he's pretty much done as of 2003. Whereas on the other hand, Chris Jericho is just getting started. He becomes the very first undisputed WWF champion, where he beats Rock and Austin on the same night. If I do remember when he won that. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I have no way of verifying that. So
let me just check.
I'll go with that. Sure, why not?
Let me see. November. Yeah, Survivor Series. Winner take all matchup by once again attacking The Rock. Jericho defeated both The Rock for the World Championship, formerly the WCW Championship, and Stone Cold Steve Austin for his first WWF Championship. And on the same night became the first wrestler to hold both championships at the same time, which then he was dubbed the first ever undisputed WWF champion. Went from a guy who was kind of just, winning, mid-card belts and kind of in the mid-card to becoming, a main event guy and really, having a good run with it. From there, he just becomes a guy who just has great matches with people. He had this great build-up at WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania 19 at Safeco Field, where he and Michaels had probably one of the best wrestling matches, either of either's career or all time as well. I mean, it was just a very, very well done match, which ended with Jericho hugging his hero and then kicking him between the legs.
Yeah.
And
as
Michaels,
you do.
And Michaels having this look on his face like, "Et tu, Brute?"
Oh, yeah. And then just like crumpled.
It was beautiful. Continued to be in the world title picture, but he departs WWE in 2005, comes back in 2007, and he goes on a freaking tear. Like, he has not just great matches, but is very much in the mode of telling compelling stories, and he does an amazing feud with Shawn Michaels. He becomes the world heavyweight champion, has great feuds with Edge, and this was the one where he was basically, this is around the time that The Wrestler came out, the Mickey Rourke movie, and so he was basically I think at one point they were talking about Mickey Rourke being in WrestleMania, and he didn't end up showing up because the Oscars was like the same weekend or something, and they didn't want him there. But as part of it, he was making fun of like Ricky Steamboat, Jimmy Snuka, Roddy Piper, and I think he was on like a 3-on-1 match or something like that with them, and he got the crap kicked out of him. But I mean, just a very, very entertaining run. During that time. Feuded with, many others, tagged with Edge for a period of time, but just, Jericho, a lot of impact across the decade, even though he walked away for about 3 years. So with all that history, sir, what say you, Stone Cold or Chris Jericho?
Jericho in a walk.
Yeah. I would be inclined to agree with you. This as much as Stone Cold dominated the 90s, this is not the case in the 2000s, and Jericho he just has the resume. So yeah. All right, next match, Big Show and Booker T. The Big Show and Booker T. Sorry, I gotta pull. Thank you. Please sing for a couple minutes while I pull this up.
No, I don't need to.
Oh, come on.
Poor
now.
Paul White, man. I mean, I don't want to say poor. I mean, the dude's made a decent living, but I mean, just one of those things where it's like nobody, he always was trying, everyone was trying to make him the next Andre the Giant. He didn't quite seem to know where he was going. Nobody knew what to do with him.
Yep.
He was one of those guys who apparently it was a revolving door, his face and heel turns. Like it generated enough wind that it could make a turbine spin, and yeah. But yet, nevertheless, because much like in the NBA, if you're over 7 feet tall if you can tie your shoes or walk and chew gum, you'll have a job.
Yep.
You're going to make six figures sitting at the end of someone's bench because you can't coach height and you can't coach someone who is that big and who can move. I mean, the guy could move around and he could actually work.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it didn't seem like nobody knew what the hell to do with him, but he could still work. So it's like he's always going to have a job. Like I think he's still trying to make a comeback in AEW or something, isn't he? Or what was going on with that? Like I don't know.
He showed up in AEW and he really hasn't done a whole lot. So
I think probably because his body won't let him. But I think he just it's almost like he would love to prove Vince wrong in a way. But Big Show. I mean, I'm sure he's a hell of a guy, but.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through. I mean, he had a great, memorable feud with Brock Lesnar. This was the imploding ring match that happened on SmackDown. Which, if you've never seen that, look that up on YouTube. That is a sight to behold.
Superplex off over the top, wasn't it? Knocked down the ring.
Superplex by Lesnar off the top, and you just watch the ring just bounce, collapse. And then all the ring posts like pop out, and I mean, it was just like incredible to watch. It's such a visual that no words can do it justice. But during this time period, United States champion for a period of time, feuded with Eddie Guerrero. I'm just looking for other people. Batista.
Did
John
Eddie make
Bradshaw,
it into this bracket?
Huh?
Did Eddie? Oh yeah, okay. Just double check.
Oh, Eddie Guerrero's in there. Absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely.
It's like we should need to retroactively put him in Steve Austin's spot, if not.
Possibly. Teamed with Kane for a period of time in the mid 2000s. He was basically made kind of the figurehead champion of ECW when that rebooted, which I think he was roundly rejected because no ECW fans wanted someone like Big Show as their champion.
No.
And clearly was booked into I think at the time this is when CM Punk was in ECW and was having some great matches with John Morrison, and I think a lot of people wanted to see him with it or I think he beat Rob Van Dam, who was an ECW original. But yeah, it was not dealt with well. And then goes on to be tag champion, for really kind of to the end of the decade. So I thought he held the world title at some point, but I think it's just the ECW championship.
Yeah, so. I don't think that happened until the next decade. I think he got because he had the title back in the 90s.
Yeah,
for a minute, and then I think he had it one other time later on at some point. But yeah, he was one of those guys that he's sort of like Kane, Kane only had that one run with the WWF championship, and then he got the big gold belt sort of treatment. But Big Show again, he's one of those guys that he was always orbiting because, well, if you need a big guy, then you bring him out, and it unfortunately didn't pay off very well for him.
Yeah. And then you got Booker T, who, very similar to Chris Jericho, was on the rise coming into this decade and really just kept, just steady upward trend.
Wasn't he the last WCW champion?
He was.
The original OG WCW?
Yep. Yeah, and so he came into WWE and was part of the Invasion angle. He had a great run with Austin, great feud with Austin. That at one point, Austin ended up brawling with him in a supermarket in which Austin won.
Yes,
assaulting Booker T with food. The brawl cost the company between $10,000 and $15,000 in damage.
Money well spent, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the acolytes made them pay more to renovate the Friendly Tap. I mean, come on.
Yes. And again, calling out to YouTube on this one. Go check it out on YouTube. If you have never seen this brawl, Booker T his facials are absolutely hysterical in this. And just such a memorable entertainer. Just so good. Let's see, feuded with Evolution. So, he hangs around the world tag title picture a bit, becomes Intercontinental Champion throughout, as we get to the middle of the 2000s, really, is just a reliable talent. United States champion through the mid 2000s. And then we get to when he won the 2006 King of the Ring, it becomes King Booker.
Yes, and his court with a fake English accent.
Yes, with his wife Queen Charmel, and I don't know if you knew this. I forgot about this. Sir William Regal and Sir Finlay.
Yes. I remember that from Wikipedia.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was hysterical. This is when I was watching the shows, but not religiously, and so I remember parts of this, but not a lot. But he was hysterical. He was hysterical as King Booker.
And was it after that when he teamed with Goldust?
No, it was before then.
Okay.
He was teaming with Goldust during the Evolution feud in 2002, 2003.
Okay.
And that feud was memorable. Goldust was just insane at that point. Well, when was Goldust ever sane, I guess?
True. Very true.
But Booker T, world champion in the world title picture, but he leaves WWE in 2007, goes to Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, where he feuds with, I believe he feuds with Bobby Roode for the World Heavyweight Championship, and then forms, a faction that was actually kind of cool for the time, the Main Event Mafia, from 2008 to 2010, and this was probably the closest Sting ever came to a heel turn. It was Booker T, Kevin Nash, Sting, Scott Steiner, and then Booker T at one point wins this championship they created. I think it was called the Legends Championship.
Yeah, wasn't Kurt Angle in that too though?
Oh, Kurt Angle was in it too. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I mean, just the 2000s were, he wasn't in WWE for the entire decade, but he had a lot of really memorable feuds, a lot of impact. The King Booker, shtick was just, off the charts funny, and just made for just, great entertainment. So, if I look at these two, Big Show and Booker T, I got to give the nod to Booker T.
Oh, totally. Even though I do feel like he probably did not get what he deserved in WWF, WWE.
Yeah.
Because and you probably would know this way better than I would. I'm just remembering bits and pieces from Wikipedia earlier today. But did anybody from WCW after the sale to Vince, did any of those guys ever win like the WWF championship?
It's a good question.
Aside from someone like Jericho who had already crossed, I'm talking about guys.
Probably not.
If there was one that should have, it probably should have been Booker. Like he probably should have been in that title picture, but he always went back to
Eddie Guerrero.
But no, he'd already come over. So what I mean is like anyone who was in WCW at the time that it was sold.
Of the sale.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the names, and no, there's no other names that were part of WCW when the sale happened.
Which I mean, I can get some of those. Like, you're not going to put the belt on Steiner. I get it. You're not going to put the belt on, whoever. But Booker to me was the one that probably should have made that jump. But it's an example of, again, just Vince being Vince and like, haha, I beat you guys and now I'm going to embarrass you. Same way with Diamond Dallas Page. Like, yeah, buddy, yeah, pal, you can come in and work and we're going to make you a stalker and completely bury your career. Ha 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 ha. Isn't that great? Like,
yeah.
That's just the petty individual that he is. So it kind of stinks because I think Booker could have definitely done more. But because he worked for the competition, it was almost one of those things where it's like Vince was probably like, oh yeah, just be glad you're working, pal. Anyways,
those boots are made for walking.
Yeah, Booker T over in another one, almost in a walk. Like, doesn't compare.
Yeah. All right, this next one will be interesting. So we have Edge, Adam Copeland versus Triple H.
This one was tough.
I bet it is.
This one is very tough because Edge really came into his own as a singles wrestler. I mean, also one of the best tag team wrestlers at the beginning of the decade.
Yep.
Then comes into his own as a singles wrestler.
Yep.
And, it kind of becomes like the despicable heel.
Oh, yeah.
Of
like
the time.
Off the charts.
Yeah. So, but then you also have Triple H, who is a despicable heel, at different parts of this decade, and is equally dislikable. Although, I don't know. I guess it's it depends on whether you like red wine or white wine. It depends on which heel despicableness you like best. But
I mean, to Triple H's credit, not only does he end up being a world champion and a despicable heel, but, and I know you're not a fan of Evolution, but Evolution was really an interesting, group to see form where it was more about the past, present, and future of the business, and really turned into the launching pad for Randy Orton and Batista.
Oh, totally. And that you need to, sort of like in the way that the Four Horsemen always orbited around Ric Flair, because Ric Flair more often than not had the championship, or was in a state of his career where he didn't necessarily need the championship, or he was chasing it.
Yep.
Same thing with the Evolution. Like Flair wasn't going to play that part.
Yep.
So someone there has to be the main event guy. And Triple H fit the bill. So no, I mean, it's not so much that I'm not a fan of it. I know it's a Four Horsemen ripoff, really. But it worked, and it worked because of Triple H and the clout that he had. Now, of course, it doesn't hurt when you're sleeping with and or married to the boss's daughter. Well, I guess actually that could work against you, as you know. But if he likes you, it works out just fine as a well. I don't know. I guess I should be careful of how I'm saying that, because Triple H right now probably doesn't think it worked out just fine. But yeah, you have to kind of that. But Edge, to his credit, was another one of those guys where, it's tough to work. Number one, it's tough to be in a great tag team in WWF because Vince hates tag teams, apparently. But to be in a very influential tag team, to come up with gimmicks, to work both as a heel and as a face, because Edge and Christian managed to be very entertaining heels / faces, like that thing. But then to break out and to be able to go to this place where people just like viscerally hate you. And then to have to survive like no holds barred matches with Foley. Good God, that's a whole other thing. Like that, you get double credit because you just aged in dog years in that match, because that crazy bastard just is like, yeah, let's do this. Like, what? No. So yeah, this is a tough matchup because, like, honestly, if I'd gone through and had my edit on this bracket, I would have split these two out in the play-in bracket. Like, this is too difficult to have. This is too good of a matchup to set up here. Like, you gotta hold this one off.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you're doctoring up you would doctor the bracket up just to, so you wouldn't have to pick them? Come on now.
Yeah, damn right. I did in the last one. That's what I did. What I did when I edited the last one. I put some of these out. You got to book these things. You don't give it all away.
No,
like
you
saying,
don't.
Like
you let the randomizer do its job, and then you let things fall where they fall.
So the guy who defended Steve Austin walking out on Brock Lesnar because they wanted to give away a match on free TV is A-OK giving away this match in the play-in round. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you:
are we winning? Are we getting $1 for this,
or what? Well, not the way you're booking this thing. My God, I ought to have Jim Cornette on here. He'd read you the riot act while eating a Domino's pizza and downing a 2-liter of Sprite all at the same time.
All right, let me run through real quick. So yeah, Edge has, like you said, great singles run, builds up to world champion contender. Wins the world championship, and done in a compelling way where he was using, first ever Money in the Bank ladder match winner, using that to, there's the seltzer again, to win it in diabolical fashion, and goes on to just continue to have this like ridiculous heel run as the rated R superstar, and I won't even try to do what not Jimmy Kimmel, what's his name? He was an announcer. He would always go rated R superstar. I can't do it. But just go on to just an amazing run as just a lead heel, teams up with Randy Orton to do rated RKO, where ironically they feuded with D-Generation X, which is what Triple H reformed with Shawn Michaels during that time. He then, wins the world title again, forms this like Edgeheads sort of group with Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Has some great matches with The Undertaker, but Batista. I mean, just like it's quite a resume. And to your point, makes it really hard. And then you look at Triple H, does Evolution, is a world champion, is always in kind of the world title picture. DX reunion in 2006, goes on to do multiple, world title runs between 2007 and 2009. Before he starts settling into kind of the chief operating officer kind of role that he, or that authority role that he kind of works his way into. But yeah, just a strong resume as well. So this one's tough. What are you going with?
See, my heart wants to go with Edge, My head goes with Triple H just because of what you say with Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely extended the career of Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
I have Triple H written down here, but I'm honestly, no, I'm going to change it. I'm going with Edge. I'm listening to my heart and not my head on this one. Yes,
the
because
heart wants what it wants.
Because I think what Edge did over the span of this decade equates to what Triple H did in the 90s, which was kind of why I gave him such an extended run through the bracket in the 90s, is because he managed to come out of an undercard position and worked his way up through a faction into a singles main eventer. And did that because he worked hard. He had the charisma. I mean, you get the push, but they have to think you're something to get there. Yeah. And so Edge is kind of repeating that in this decade. And Triple H was already there, and he did great things, and had a hell of a decade still. But I'll give Edge the edge.
All right. If you took Triple H, I was going to take Edge, but you took Edge. I'm going to take Triple H. I'm going to advance Triple H in mine.
All right.
I mean, valid arguments, you know, all around. I don't argue a single point that you've laid out there for Edge, because I think he was equally. This is another one of those really difficult ones to call because it isn't black and white. They both had very strong careers, and I'll go with Triple H just because he I'm giving him a little bit of a nod ahead of Edge because he was kind of the foundation. If Cena was the franchise, Triple H was the foundation, and excuse me, and just quality worker, had great feuds and great world title runs, and really was for much of the 2000s. Just one of the go-to guys, and you're going to get a really entertaining and good main event, when he was or match when he was wrestling. So I'm going to go with Triple H. I would love to push Edge forward, believe me, but going with Triple H.
Fair enough. Next.
All right, Brock Lesnar and Taz. So we go from really hard to call to, well, we should be able to move on in a couple minutes here.
Do we really even need to list this out?
Well, we do, because Lesnar had a very odd 2000s.
Okay, but Taz barely had a 2000s. Unfortunately. All
right, well, let's start with Brock Lesnar, right?
Okay, let's.
Comes in 2002 as the next big thing with Paul Heyman, so already plus 500 points in his favor for me.
Yes.
As just this wrecking ball of a human being. I mean, it was just the things that he did to Spike Dudley were just criminal. I mean, quite honestly, just how Spike. I mean, I really hope Spike Dudley is able to walk and he's in good health. But my God,
I think Spike Dudley might have passed on.
Did he?
I'll check, but you keep on going.
No, he's still alive.
He is. Oh, he is.
Alive.
Good for him.
He's still alive.
Spike, glad to hear it.
All right. Anywho, but Lesnar has just like this.
He's
ridiculous...
billed at 150 pounds. I think that's I think that might be a fabrication.
Oh boy. But just has a really strong run from 02 to 04. World champion. Pretty much through most of it. He was fast tracked to it because he was just such a unique competitor with his body and his speed and his size and the way that he just portrayed violence and viciousness was just something that was just so different, and when he walked out there, I mean he still is a guy who walks out there and you're just like, this guy is going to wreck someone, you know what I mean?
He's a freak of a human being.
He looks like he means, not that, I don't mean to say he looks like he means business, but he means business and then some. And so, no, just really, really great feuds with like Kurt Angle, Big Show, Eddie Guerrero. For as big as he is, he has such great matches with smaller wrestlers like like those guys. And then in the 2010s, he had great match with AJ Styles. So just a guy who, had a really great run, and then unfortunately an unceremonious exit when he didn't want to do the travel. He wasn't having the 200-300 days they were on the road, so he leaves after that awful match with Goldberg at WrestleMania 20. But then he goes to Japan after a failed stint in football, or trying to make an NFL team. Goes on to become the IWGP Heavyweight Champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Continues to ply his trade that way, but doesn't come back to WWE until 2012. So I mean, what we're really talking about is 02 to 05 for Lesnar.
Okay.
Taz, on the other hand, comes into WWE in the late 90s, has a feud with, feuds with Jerry Lawler, feuds with, or becomes part of the Alliance Invasion angle, where he's, part of ECW. We talked about the thing with Mike Awesome and becoming ECW champion. But then he really becomes just a color commentator in 02. So he's got about 2 years. So it's kind of funny to compare these two, because Lesnar, I mean, yes, he wrestled in New Japan. You can count that time, but they are, relatively speaking, almost the same kind of time period for the two of them. And so out of those two, who would you say, sir, has the bigger impact?
Brock Lesnar.
Of course.
I mean, infamously,
I agree.
Infamously, Paul Heyman, in one of his better promos against Vince McMahon, the infamous, one where Vince told him to draw money. Paul Heyman's line was, "You took a killer like Taz and you turned him into a fat commentator, and not even a good one." Yeah. Now, I don't agree with not even a good one, but the first part, kind of the same, kind of the thing. Like, they just did not know what to do with Taz. They had a killer come in. They had someone with a lot of hype.
Vince doesn't know how to push, or at least at that time, he didn't know how to push smaller wrestlers.
I don't even know if it was that. Like, Vince only knew how to do what Vince does. And unfortunately, there's some people, like, if you don't fit into the box, then too bad. And instead of looking at it and going, okay, what can this person do? It's like, well, I've got a list of 5 things, and if you don't fit in this, well, too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in a lot of businesses, that puts you in trouble. In a business where you're already, you're the only competition. Well, you just keep chugging along.
Yeah.
So yeah, Brock in a walk.
All right. We're getting down to our last. I went with Brock as well.
I kind of thought so.
I agree. All right. Last two of the play-in, Kurt Angle versus Batista. So
no, we have another one after this. Undertaker and Shawn Michaels is the 18th play-in.
I said one of the last two.
Oh, okay. I thought you said the last. I'm sorry.
No, I said one of the last.
I was mistaken. My apologies, sir.
Uncle Todd likes to point out my errors.
Well, no, I'm hoping that we're going to be under 4 hours here, and it's not looking good so far, sir.
Hey, we're going to get through it, my friend. We're going to get through it.
I know we're going to get through it. I just wonder if I'm going to get any sleep, or if I'm just going to be hearing the birds chirping when this thing is end up.
All right, Kurt Angle, really coming into the 2000s hot and heavy.
That's a phrase I didn't really need to hear. I got to be honest with you.
Has a very strong debut, great run in the late 90s, gets into the 2000s, WWF champion, is really I'm going to use this term probably a lot moving forward, but either foundational or cornerstone, whatever you want to call him, of the promotion, the Alliance storyline. He's a key part of that. He is a multiple time world champion, holding both the, World Heavyweight Championship, the WWE Championship. Really at this time, he is a machine. Any match that Angle is in is a quality, high quality match. And he is doing some of his best work during this time. Becomes WWE champion several times, as I mentioned. Great feuds with Brock Lesnar, with Eddie Guerrero, with Chris Benoit. This was a time period where, it was just really fun as a wrestling fan to see, and just a funny, entertaining guy. He wasn't just a killer wrestler like Lesnar. He brought the entertainment, he brought the humor, and just had, just really, really great matches with whoever he was with. And Shane McMahon. And
as we kind of learned from the Broken Skull session episode with him, understood the business very early.
Yeah.
Which I would imagine has to be kind of tough coming from my air quotes, legit wrestling background.
Yeah.
But then to go into this thing and go, oh, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
And just kind of got it very early on and building the character and all that. And which to me, I'm like, that's gotta be tough for a lot of people. And you're like a very rare person who can make that shift that quickly and get on the boat.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Goes on to Total. So he leaves WWE in 2005 or 6, goes to Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, and is really there for 10 years, but is the cornerstone there. I mean, he is the man who holds the world title most of the time. Great feuds with Samoa Joe, with AJ Styles. Who else? Christian, who ends up going over there. Really that is a place that some talent go to because they saw it as, an ability to kind of be a big fish in a smaller pond where they probably wouldn't have been given the opportunity, in WWE. Mm-hmm. Part of the Main Event Mafia, as you pointed out. He was the foundation of TNA for a very long time. So Kurt had a really, even though it isn't all in WWE, he had a really strong decade.
Totally.
And then we look at Dave Bautista, who, came into the business in 2002. He was part of that class with Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin. There was just this class from that OVW developmental system, where, just a lot of great talent was cultivated. Comes in, he starts off as Deacon Batista with Devon Dudley.
How long ago was this? Batista had hair, ladies and gentlemen. That's how long ago this was. Yeah, he was
carried the collection box.
Yeah. Yep,
he carried the collection box.
Oh my goodness! Because again, Vince McMahon hates tag team wrestling, so he had to break up the Dudley Boys.
Yeah, that was probably a fun thing for him to do. So,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Just another reason to that mustache wearing. Okay, let's move on.
But he finds himself in a really sweet position in 2003 with Evolution, where he gets to learn from Flair and Triple H. He slowly builds, a character, a personality as the Beast, and really the fans just glom onto him, especially when he finally does his face turn in 2005 and challenges Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. He then goes on and has a really good run as world champion, with great feuds with JBL, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero again. You hear Eddie's name a lot in this decade, and there's a reason why, and we'll get to it. But yeah, just overall, just had a really strong decade. Becomes WWE champion in 2009, 2010. So Batista is really, he's in the world title picture from 2005 to really 2010, and is just a main event talent, after that run with Evolution. So, which again is amazing to me, because I thought Evolution was like a 4-year thing. It was only 2 years, and they were off to the races. And so, just had a lot of great feuds. Edge was another one that he had, and then let's see,
and then really, it was kind of, he's timed perfectly for this bracket. Like his career really is within this decade, and then after that, he's really off making movies after that, right?
Yep. So this is a hard one.
No, not really.
Really?
No, Kurt Angle.
Oh, all right.
Kurt Angle. I all respect to Batista, because it's almost the same thing as, like, you look at a guy like Glenn Jacobs, to be able to shake off the stank of being the Christmas creature, the faux diesel, Isaac Yankem, to become anything worthwhile, let alone one of the most enduring characters that has ever been in professional wrestling. That's an accomplishment. To go from Deacon Batista to anything is an accomplishment.
It is.
It's no shade at him. It's just the fact that you're basically talking about this generation's Bret the Hitman Hart, a guy who wrestled everybody and was able to have really good matches with everybody. And who could get heat as a heel. He could work as a face. He could do comedy. He could cut promos. If he is a 5-tool player in baseball terms, he can do everything you need. And he's the like you said very aptly. I think it's the best way to describe him. He was the cornerstone, or a cornerstone, of the WWE main event scene. And then he goes to another promotion, and he is if not the cornerstone of their main event scene. That's a hell of a thing to like shift over and then just become another promotions guy. Because if I remember right, I've watched some videos, like TNA was not, ever in danger of unseating WWE, but they were doing well for a while in terms of things, and got subverted by the fact that nobody there knew what the hell they were doing in business.
Yep.
But Angle, I mean, come on, that guy is as rock solid of a worker as you could get, and isn't just the guy who's like, well, he can work, but he can't talk or this and that. No, he could do it all. I mean, literally, that is the comparison that I think is most apt. Is a Bret Hart, maybe not really Shawn Michaels, just because to me it's a different style. To me, it's like Bret Hart is a 1-to-1 comparison, and it's like, oh yeah, totally. This guy just, no doubt.
Yep.
And you, sir?
I'm also going to go with Kurt Angle. I mean, we were talking through it, and it is a hard one because when you consider Impact, I said it earlier, like you said. I mean, he was the cornerstone of two promotions, and Batista. This is another one of those unfortunate things, right? You have two strong guys going up against each other in this bracket, but you put Batista up against a lot of these other guys, and he's going to go over because he had a very strong. He's going over Kane. He's going over Booker T. He's going over
Mark Henry.
I would even say he goes over Lesnar. Because of the fact that he has.
Yeah.
Well, I mean.
Yeah. No. You're right.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's where it's hard, but yeah, I got to give the nod to Angle on this one. Absolutely.
All right.
Last play-in, and then we're going to try to fly through the first 8 matchups that we've already kind of talked through in what is the first round, I guess.
We got a couple of holdovers from like late 80s, early 90s here.
Yes. And this one is going to be a tough one, especially since one of them is actually the reason the other retires.
Yeah.
So we have the American Badass Undertaker in 2000. Well, I guess that started kind of in the 2000s, maybe in '99. But
yeah, Biker Taker was just about the turn of the century. Yeah,
and Taker just goes on a great run with Kane, for the tag championships. He disappears for a period of time, comes back. I think that was when he came back wasn't that during the Rock Triple H what was it, the Iron Man match, I thought,
he had his 3 different personas. So he had Biker Taker, then he had Big Evil, which was sort of this midway point, and then he came back as the Dead Man.
The Undertaker. Yeah.
So I don't know where those line up. I remember that from Wikipedia.
Yeah, I don't either. Gosh, I mean, there's just so much to go through with him. It's crazy.
Well, he won that. He had at least one run with the big gold belt.
He did,
which as a former WCW, as Mean Mark Callis, that had to have been somewhat satisfying to be like, I never thought I would get within sniffing distance of this thing unless Ric Flair asked me to hold it while he took a leak. That was about as close as I was getting to it. That was it. And for him to have that belt at some point must have been like, how sweet it is.
Indeed.
As he downs like half a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Let's see what else. I mean,
couple tag team runs. Yeah,
just has a lot of great runs. I mean, or a lot of great feuds during this decade. This is when the streak starts to become a thing.
Yep.
So, he has this long win record at WrestleMania, and it starts to be, basically a gimmick now where who's going to knock him off. And so he has a world, WWE championship run. He has a world heavyweight champion run, as Uncle Todd just talked about, continues to build that streak up, through the decade. And then, unceremoniously, actually has a really good, not unceremoniously here, but he has a really good feud with CM Punk of all people, which, we had to kind of, he'll be in the next bracket for 2010, and had a great feud with Rey Mysterio. I mean, God, I keep going, but eventually we get to the point of it's the streak versus the career. And this is where it is Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, at WrestleMania 26. I believe that was in 2009 or 2010, around there, and ends Shawn Michaels' career. Actually, they have 2 matches. I think they faced off once at WrestleMania 25, and he beats Shawn Michaels, and then Shawn comes back and wants one more shot, and he's putting his career on the line for it, and he loses. And so, let's see. The match also made both Undertaker and Michaels the first men in WWE history to main event WrestleMania in 3 different decades. Undertaker main evented WrestleMania 13 and 14, or sorry, 24. Michaels main evented WrestleMania 12 and 14, then 20, then 23. Yeah, so a lot of history in that, but basically, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels both with really just incredible run. Oh, and I didn't get into Shawn Michaels, but he disappeared shortly after losing to Austin in the late 90s. He has to go and kind of get himself, right in the head and right in body. And so he comes back, with just a new and more positive perspective on life. Has a great feud with Triple H when he first comes back, has a great feud with Chris Jericho, goes on to do the DX reunion with Triple H, where they face off against various tag teams and do a lot of goofy comedy that also plays off the fact he's a born again Christian. So I just remember there was a lot of goofy stuff where, like they had I don't know if they had scantily clad ladies around or whatever. And Triple H is like, Sean, look, it's the Iron Sheik. And he goes, runs off. And then the ladies come into frame or something. I mean, it's just one of these goofy things they would do just to play off of it and stuff. But Michaels, really a lot of people look at this decade and the work he did here as just some of his best. I mean, just very good stories being told leading up to the matches just being phenomenal. I mean, he was firing on all cylinders, and if he had a back problem, during that time, you had no idea, because he put on just some amazing matches during this time. So I mean, and then ultimately, he holds the world title a couple times during this period, and like I said, just has some great matches. He retires Ric Flair, but then faces his own retirement when he tries to go up against the Undertaker. And I just remember in both of those years, the build up to those 2 matches with the Undertaker were just so well done, and just it was. I don't remember him going full on heel, but really, just the way they kind of got into their history, and him not being afraid of taking the big man down and all this sort of thing. It was just such a great build up to it, but ultimately losing to the Undertaker in 2010 and retiring. So just two amazing runs during these decades. So I don't know, man, this is a tough one. You gonna flip a coin or what?
You're not making this easier, because I had Undertaker down here. And now, after listening to your accolades for Shawn Michaels, now I want to pick Shawn Michaels, because Undertaker always maintained the mystique of the character, but I always feel like you're talking about the character, and the character having its own thing, and just by sheer longevity and being a pillar of the main event scene forever. It just is. It kind of carries, sort of like when we talked, like Steve Austin got thrown into this bracket, and quite honestly, didn't have any business being in this bracket. But because of reputation, and because he was such a big part of TV, even though he wasn't actually wrestling, or doing much, but he was still like a face, and they're just trying to get ratings. It's kind of the same with Undertaker, But if you're actually looking at the actual work, the stuff that's done, I mean, wasn't this also the time when Michaels had his match with Hogan, where he oversell to the point of hilarity?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was like parody almost. It was crazy.
You know what? I'm gonna go with Shawn Michaels, because again, he's just that guy who could have a decent match with a freaking broom. And make it believable and make you feel sorry for him. It's just, I'm going to go with Shawn Michaels, just because I think the comeback and of course the matches with Hogan, Flair, Undertaker, like the kind of the victory lap, I guess you will. I'll go with him on that. How about you?
This is hard, because when we did the 80s, we really couldn't count Taker. When we did the 90s, he was overshadowed by the shadow of Austin, really. And now in this decade, he has a great one, and you want to see him go further in a bracket like this. But when I, just to your point, when you talk about this and you see what Michaels did and doing it as like almost like a second part to his career, it's and just the you know, the consistent storytelling through it and all. I mean, I have to agree with you and you know, advance, you know, Shawn Michaels, which hurts me because I mean, of all the decades, this probably was the one for Undertaker to win, you know. And it's just, but yeah, like we said, we just have to, you got to call it like you see it, and I see it as Michaels just having that much of a great, you know, career during that decade. So
the bracket was not kind to Mark Calloway.
It was not. It was not. All right.
I think he's going to be okay though.
I think he's doing good. I think he's just doing fine. All right, so in our first round of the actual 16-man bracket, we have John Cena versus The Rock. We have gone through their accolades of the 2000s and their decade, with The Rock basically kind of walking away from the business around 2004, and Cena really kind of rising up at that point in time in 2003, 2004, and becoming, you know, kind of the foundation, you know, of the promotion moving forward. So without going back into and adjudicating all the details, because I think we've beat them to death. John Cena. So for me, it's John Cena and The Rock. I believe it should be the same for you.
It is.
Okay, so I'm actually going to advance John Cena in this case. I think he had the stronger decade.
Yes, the Doctor of Thugonomics advances for me as well.
Indeed. All right, our next one, Kane and Chris Jericho. You know, again, going through the accolades, Kane had a strong decade. Now, I think for you, it's Jeff Hardy versus Chris Jericho.
Correct.
I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, comparing these two, I got to give the nod to Jericho. I think he had the stronger run, and especially from a storytelling perspective, had some very, very compelling matches toward the end of the decade. So I'm going to go with Jericho on this one.
Me as well. The ride, Cinderella ride ends for Jeff Hardy. Innovation only gets you so far. You have to have some consistency, and unfortunately for Jeff, and you know, his own problems and issues and things like that, the consistency just isn't there. And honestly, I think the Dudley Boys had the toughest time because those two were just inseparable. They really just did not work as individuals. Not until, you know, Bubba Ray became Bully Ray.
Yes,
really. But I mean, it's tough to separate a team like Matt and Jeff Hardy. It really is. Like, they were just so entwined as a unit, and then to separate out, and so it took him a lot longer.
Yeah,
but ultimately he did. But yeah, just not as much as Jericho.
All right. Now, my next matchup is Booker T versus Triple H. I think you might have Booker T versus Edge.
Correct.
All right. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Edge, and it's not because I think Booker T couldn't have been on par. I just think that Booker T suffered from the fact that he was never going to get the success in WWE that he had that he was heading into with WCW. He is one of the most decorated wrestlers of all time.
Yeah,
he holds so many different tag titles, all these different titles. But Vince was never going to put him over in the same way he was going to put over his guys. He was always going to be that guy from that promotion. And the fact that he managed to break through as many glass ceilings as were set up for him in that context is remarkable. But unfortunately, we're going on what was and not what could have been. So yes. I've got to give the nod to Edge, because it really was. He's one of those guys where you look at it, you're like, that's his decade. Yep. You know, in the same way you look at Batista, that was his decade. Of course, that was his career. But for Edge, this really was his decade of coming into his own. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Triple H on this one. I think he had the stronger decade, and again, not to take anything away from Booker T, but again, as a cornerstone or foundation of WWE, Triple H was in the mix and constantly, and so I'm going to go with Triple H moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he had the reign of terror. I mean, what else you want?
Next one for me is Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle.
Same here.
I'm actually going to go with Kurt Angle, mainly because, as we've already talked about, he, I'll use the term again, cornerstone. He was a cornerstone for two promotions and had a significant run during that time. Lesnar, unfortunately, petered out in 2005 or 2004. And, but I think we're going to have a different conversation about Lesnar when we get to the 2010s, because
that's when Suplex City became a thing, right?
Yeah, and ironically, even though he was part-time during much of that decade, I think Lesnar, you can make a case Lesnar was a cornerstone of WWE for most of that decade. So Kurt Angle advances, and then and sorry, did we go over yours as well?
No, Kurt Angle all the way.
Kurt Angle.
Yeah, it wasn't even a question. It was about the same with like Brock Lesnar and Taz between these two, really.
All right, and now we get to the final play-in advance wrestler of Shawn Michaels here against one we haven't talked about yet, Matt Hardy. Reason I included Matt here, of course, had to do with the tag championship work that he did with his brother Jeff. But really, comes back. He leaves WWE in 2005, comes back to WWE later that year, and brings this sort of real, very real. Drama that's going on between him, Edge, and Lita. For much of the time in the early, 2000s, Matt Hardy and Lita were an item. In real life, when Matt left, Lita and Edge kind of became a thing. And so when he returned, there was, real life, kind of heat going on between him and Edge. But they parlayed that into a feud, into a match. And I remember at the time it looked pretty, Matt brought a little bit of a mean streak, with that, obvious, understandably so. But really, from there, kind of went back to tag team with his brother. He ends up feuding with MVP for the United States Championship, and then departs. I think he feuds with his brother, and then I think departs back to TNA Wrestling after that. So, has a presence, has does some good things. Didn't get to the world championship level, and really wasn't a player there. But that was Matt's run in the 2000s. So really just more tag team wrestling and U.S. championship versus Shawn Michaels. So what say you, sir?
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to let you all know that had I been booking this bracket, Matt would have definitely been in the play-in, and it would not have become anywhere near a first round, pick here. So I just want you all to know that. I want you to know I wasn't involved in this, because this is an abomination. This is a travesty. It's a mockery. It's a sham. It's a sham mockery, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God. It's a schmuckery.
Yes, a schmuckery, if you will, which is that's the Jewish version of a schmuckery, I guess. I have no idea. Either that or it's all about Smucker's jelly. In which case, I mean, hey, fine. A schmuckery and peanut butter sandwich. Where the hell am I going with this?
I don't know. I'm asking you for an answer here.
Shawn Michaels, easily.
All right.
Easily. And I feel a little bit bad for Matt Hardy, because he was the guy in the team that was just like less identifiable. In a team that neither one of them were all that identifiable. He was the guy who was like, oh yeah, he's not the one that's taking the big bump. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Our next one is Randy Orton versus Rob Van Dam.
And you were totally pointing at your back when you did that, weren't you?
Absolutely. All right. Mr. Van Dam, let's start with Orton. Comes in, again, part of that class out of OVW, part of Evolution, where he becomes Intercontinental Champion. I don't know if he was, I think it was Batista and Flair that were the tag champs. So he has a run that way. He becomes the youngest world heavyweight champion, at least at that time in August 2004. I don't know if that has been broken since.
I think it has.
I thought it did too. I just don't remember who. So, but has a world title run that was a little bit forgettable. It might have been too much too quickly. But goes on, has a feud with The Undertaker, which was highly regarded. Has his tag team with Edge for Rated RKO. Becomes WWE champion and has a much better run, as the Viper, and continues to have that upward trend, very similar to Batista. Just has a great run. And then in 2008, he forms the Legacy, a stable with him, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase Jr. And largely forgettable because DiBiase Jr. and Cody, I think, were still very early in their careers and not quite established, but was definitely definitely interesting, and it was a good run. I don't remember if this is when he was doing at one point he was doing the Legends Killer thing where he was going and laying into, legends who were like attending the events and stuff like that. Let me see. Oh, I think that was that was between 02 and 03 where he became the Legend Killer. And he would go after, and I think that's when he had a feud with Foley too. Let me find that. Hold on. Legend Killer. Yeah. Challenging the semi-retired wrestler Mick Foley. I mean, we'll get to Foley in a minute, but Foley just has some amazing matches with both him and Edge. It's kind of his swan song. But yeah, Legacy is kind of how things end out for Randy Orton. But he just becomes, kind of a constant in the world title picture, really in the late 2000s. Rob Van Dam, an ECW original, comes in 01, part of the invasion. But he goes on to hold a bunch of, holds the Hardcore Championship, holds the Intercontinental Championship, works his way up to and Tag Championship as well, as he teams with Kane, part of the the whole feud part of the whole storyline where Kane unmasks and kind of takes it all out on RVD. But he goes on and ends up winning the WWE Championship from John Cena at ECW One Night Stand. So he is both. I believe at that time he was both WWE and ECW champion. Which I thought at the time they were going to do a Shane Douglas thing where he wins the belt and then he takes the WWE title and like throws it down and vaunts the ECW title, but
that was ever going to happen.
Yeah, I know.
No.
So yeah, he has a run as a world champion. Widely regarded as just again a constant in the locker room and on the roster for WWE. He was really good, but he leaves in 07, goes out on the independents. He goes into TNA wrestling around 2010. So that's kind of how he ends his run. So Randy Orton or Rob Van Dam, sir, based on that.
Before we go any further, Randy Orton is still the youngest WWE champion, over 24 years old.
Wow. Very nice.
Thank you, Google. Nice. I'm going to go with Randy Orton. I get the obsession with Rob Van Dam. I've just never been into him and his character. Like, it just never clicked with me. I don't know why. And I get how revolutionary he was and how he's been copied. And I've made a case for people who have been those innovators getting more weight to that. However, Randy Orton, I don't know. I just felt like that he just had the better decade of the two. I maybe it just comes down to preference.
Yeah. It's a hard one to call. I mean, Randy's certainly ending the decade on a high note and is really part of that world title picture. RVD though, just an insane moveset and just just all around, fun wrestler to watch and really, finds himself in the championship conversation across the decade in WWE, which is no small feat. It's a really tough call. I'm actually going to go with Rob Van Dam on this one. I'm going to have him go forward because he was, unfortunately we couldn't include him in the 90s either. But in the 2000s, he comes in as a guy who was not someone Vince made. And I think it was in, I'm forgetting the series on the WWE network, but there was a series they did and, you come to find out that, Vince and Rob Van Dam actually, kind of get a sense of why he did so well. Cause I think, Vince and he, could relate to each other quite a bit.
Which is very odd. I don't see that.
Yes. So I'm going to advance Rob Van Dam.
That's almost like hearing who Ronald Reagan got along really well with? Alice Cooper. I want that as a road movie. Like what? What?
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess there are those pairings. Like you just hear about people and you're like, who and who?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is a toss up and it just comes down to preference. So I got you.
Yeah. All right. So we get now to Mick Foley versus Eddie Guerrero.
Yes. Which,
For Foley, this is going to be kind of quick because he basically he retires and then he unretires in 2000. He gets retired by Triple H, and then somehow at the Royal Rumble, was the Royal Rumble? No, it was the February pay-per-view, and then he comes back for WrestleMania as it's a fatal 4-way for the world title.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to become commissioner. He departs for a period of time. He comes back to WWE, where he has the Randy Orton feud. He has the Edge feud. He kind of vacillates between being a performer and a commentator. But then later in the decade, he shows up in Total Nonstop Action Wrestling and actually holds the world title for a period of time. So he does have that he notch, a little notch in his belt there. Whereas Eddie Guerrero, came in the late 90s, or like in 2000 with the other Radicals, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Perry Saturn. But he goes on to just have some amazing matches, amazing feuds. SmackDown, under Paul Heyman during this time when they split it into brands, just became this show that was just so much better than Raw because of folks like Kurt Angle, Guerrero, Chris Benoit, and just others. Who else? Oh, Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Haas. I mean, there was just like, Edge, Rey Mysterio. There was just so much talent on that roster, and they tore the house down, constantly. So becomes WWE champion in 2004. And then unfortunately in 2005, so he has a great run through that time period with fighting Brock Lesnar, Big Show, has amazing feuds with like Rey Mysterio. That's the famous I'm your papi.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What else? The lie, cheat, steal thing was oh my God. I mean, it was just like Eddie was just a house of fire during this time. Yeah. And then sadly the fire, is extinguished with his untimely death in 2005. So one wonders what could have been, had he kept going.
Yeah.
Because he just continued to find ways to entertain and to, create some great stories in WWE. So, sir, Mick Foley or Eddie Guerrero?
Man, as much as I love me some Mick Foley, I got to go with Eddie. And if you haven't seen it, there is an entire show on the Mick Foley Edge WrestleMania match.
Oh,
I can't remember what show it is, what the title of the show is, but it's on the network, or it's on the network section of Peacock, and you find it there. It is well worth it. It goes into the whole thing and all. It's great. Mm-hmm. And yes, Mick definitely gets credit for those matches, but they're highlights, and then it's his work as a commissioner and all that. Eddie to me gets credit for being one of those guys where things worked out right. Like there's times when you look at it and you're like, well, how come this guy never got a chance as the champ? How come this guy never got a chance to carry the ball and to be the guy out in front? And sometimes just it seems like by accident it happens. And the guy who deserves a spot, who you're like, oh, but it's never going to happen because they're always going to go for this guy or that guy. And in Eddie's case, he got the chance to do it and did extraordinarily well with it. And I think that you just have to me, like you say, like it's almost like the Gale Sayers sort of, putting him in the Hall of Fame sort of thing. Like you almost give, like, I know, and I just said a little while ago, like we're giving credit for what happened and not what could have happened. In a case like this, it kind of is almost a little bit of that. And I'm totally going back on what I just said.
WWE Untold is the show.
Yes. Oh man, it's such a good special. I've watched it like twice.
Yes.
Yes. And I love Edge's like expression in some of that. Like, especially when he talks about like going through the table.
Yeah. Well, and like he's shaking. Like I don't know how much of that was acting versus he was just responding to the fact that he just fell into a fire. But it's pretty freaky when you see him. Like he is one screwed up dude after that match.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I just love how he but Mick is sort of just like, he's like, that was just another Sunday for me. And Edge is like, I haven't been blown up with C4. I don't know if I like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, by that time he had turned into, oh my gosh, his mentor. I'm completely blanking on his name.
His mentor?
Terry Funk.
Sorry. I was thinking about Eddie. Sorry.
Back when Terry was telling him, "Oh, don't worry, Cactus, it'll be fine." That was Mick at that point. Like, "Don't worry, Edge, it'll be fine." Like, no, it won't. One of us is going to be really freaking hurt.
Yeah.
But Eddie gets it for me.
Yep. 100%. All right, our final first round matchup: Christian versus Rey Mysterio. And as we go through this, I'll try to be quick. Christian again, teaming with Edge, did some amazing things on the tag team front. Basically has a run with the Intercontinental Championship, European Championship, feuds with Chris Jericho. What else? He has kind of a mid-card run. Mm-hmm. Doesn't really, I'm trying to think, or I'm trying to see here. I don't believe he has any run with the world title. Yeah. He leaves in 2004, goes to TNA Wrestling from 2005 to 2007, where he is crowned world champion and is involved in the main event title picture. He then continues in 2007 and 2008, again, still being in that world title picture for TNA Wrestling. In a lot of ways, along with Kurt Angle was one of the, kind of core stars that was brought over, between him, Angle, the Dudleys, really brought a lot of star power to this, kind of fledgling promotion and really helped build it up. But then he would later leave, I think. When did he leave? Left in 2008, I think, from TNA. And then he just kind of disappears for a while. And, he leaves in 2008, comes back to WWE in 2009, is ECW champion.
Again, one of a billion ECW champions. Like everyone on this list at one point seems like they were ECW champion.
But then goes on to win the World Heavyweight Championship. This is right around the time Edge retires because of his health, health issues. He wins the world title, but then has to step down, and Christian kind of picks up the mantle, and defeats Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight Championship, which is really cool to see. So he has a period, he kind of ends, that was in 2011, excuse me.
Yes.
So we cannot count that. So
erase that from your minds, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
ECW champion. That's
stricken from the record.
All right. Rey Mysterio, on the other hand, comes into WWE in 2002, goes on to win tag team gold and cruiserweight gold, teams and feuds with Eddie Guerrero in 2004 and 2005, goes on to become world heavyweight champion in 2005, has some, just great feuds as champion then. Goes on to continue in various storylines. Wins Intercontinental Championship in 2009, 2010. So Rey is really, really a staple of WWE starting in 2002, and just goes on a great run and, finds his way as world champion, during that time period. So
now was that the big gold belt world championship, or did he win the WWF title?
Sorry, I had to take a gulp of water. That is the big gold belt.
Okay. Well, at least that I don't disprove my own point, because again, you're allowed to win the old belt from your company, but not ours, pal.
Yeah.
Another wonderful thing. But anyway.
But so between, I know I ran through it pretty quick, but between Christian and Rey, who are you going with?
I got to go with Rey, because
I do too.
Totally broke a barrier of like what a little guy can do.
Yes.
And where their spot in the roster is. And I mean, the fact that, dude is from a luchador background. He is, these are not guys who are respected or given a lot of hype in main event scene for American promotions. And he changed that,
Absolutely.
I mean, granted, it's not like we've seen a bunch of guys under 6 feet, like thousands and thousands of them become main eventers. But I mean, you can always point back to him as like, well, it's possible. And,
absolutely.
It's amazing that, again, like we marveled at him at WrestleMania. Like the dude is in his late 40s and is it late 40s or is he 50? No, he's 48. He's 48 and he's 5'6". Yeah. And he is still flying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just to have him win a major main event belt was huge.
Yeah.
Not something you would ever expect.
No, not at all. And that feud with Eddie Guerrero was unreal.
Oh yeah.
Was just unreal. It was just really, blurring. I don't want to say it was blurring the reality lines a lot, but there was just something about it that you just despised Eddie. You know what I mean? And it just made for such a great, a great feud with young Dominic, now not sitting in the pokey Dominic. So
yes.
All right.
Next round, sir. I'm here.
Sorry, you went quiet. I'm like, did he lose his internet?
Oh no, I'm filling out the next round, and I got caught in the Google Sheets.
I see. All right, so we are now in the quarterfinals. So we're just going to run through these quickly because we've, I think, talked these all to death, and quite honestly, I think Uncle Todd needs to go to bed.
Well,
all right,
getting there. Yeah,
getting there. All right, John Cena, Chris Jericho. Who you going with?
Cena.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that one.
It's looking more and more like it's his world, and everybody else is just a squirrel looking for a nut, man.
Quite honestly, yeah. I mean, Jericho had a very respectable run, and you could make an argument of advancing him forward because of the fact he came back and had that great run at the end of the decade. But at the same time, Cena is constant throughout the decade. There is no gap.
If Jericho had been there the whole time. Yeah, I think it's more of an argument just because you have you would at least have that matchup of like the time.
Yep. 100%. All right. Kurt Angle and Triple H is my next matchup. Who do you have?
Kurt Angle and Edge.
Ooh, who you going with? That's a hard one.
It is, but you know what? I'm going with Kurt. Workhorse, man. He is
moving Kurt ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
How about you?
That's a hard one. You got Triple H, who's the cornerstone of WWE during this time, and you got Kurt Angle, who's the cornerstone of WWE in the early part, and then TNA and in the second part. And I'm struggling because and they're both great wrestlers. They both had very, very great runs, during this decade. Oh, this is hard.
Get out of quarter.
Probably got to flip. Yeah. You know what? I appreciate you moving Kurt forward. I'm actually going to go with Triple H.
The reign of terror continues, and Triple the rich get richer.
Moves forward. All right. Next round, I have Shawn Michaels and Rob Van Dam. Who do you have?
I have Michaels and Orton.
Michaels. So who are you going to advance?
Michaels. I mean, just the way the bracket's working out.
Yeah.
I didn't plan on the Heartbreak Kid getting this far into this, but I mean, with how you've booked him, it's almost like you're setting it up.
Hey, I'm booking Mr. WrestleMania for the finals. What are you talking about?
I know, but you're like against like the weakest competition possible. Like, why don't you throw in Hardcore Holly into his bracket too? Let him chew on that for crying out loud. Who do you got?
All right. I have Shawn Michaels and Rob Van Dam. There's just no comparison between these two. I mean, Michaels clearly has the stronger decade, and so I'm just going to move him forward. All right. Last matchup of the quarterfinals: Eddie Guerrero. I have Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. I believe you must have the same.
Same, yes.
So, who are you moving forward? Poppy or not Poppy?
Man,
this is hard.
It's because now I'm kind of going back on what I just went back on before, because I'm going to go with Ray because just a wider sample, and I think Ray had just a bit more to overcome just because of the size.
Yeah,
they both had a lot to overcome because they just were not the typical guys that Vince is going to put over.
Yeah, exactly.
But Ray had the size disadvantage to go along with it too, because we all know Vince loves the bodybuilders, the big guys, the monsters, all that. And I'm just going to go with that, and it kind of sucks because, like you say, good Lord, what would Eddie have done?
I know.
I mean, he was such a natural. Yes. Such a natural at just getting heat, but yet also getting heat where people loved him.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, it was great.
I'm going to give the nod to Ray as well. And you know, and I hate saying it this way because this is not in Eddie's control in any way, shape, or form, but just the longevity of it. You know, I mean, just Ray has the run that, you know, Eddie could have had if you know, things didn't tragically end the way that they did. And so yeah, so I'm giving it to Ray on that front, that he, like you said, he broke boundaries. He overperformed and went to places that someone his size, you know, you don't think would normally have been able to do, and he did it, and he did it consistently. Great worker, and you know, I mean, he continues to do it. So yeah, for the 2000s, I'm going to go with Rey Mysterio.
Right on.
All right, so now as we figure out the finals here, I have John Cena versus Triple H. Who do you got?
I've got Cena versus Angle.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and this is, I mean, they're both the you know, they're at least two of the cornerstones. If there are more cornerstones, I need to relook at the list, but
well, I mean, if you look at it, a cornerstone, there would be three others if you're going corners, you know, four corners, I'm guessing.
I'm going to go with Cena. I think this is Cena's decade. You know, quite honestly, I think he become, you know, in the same way, you know, we kind of went with Austin in the 90s. I think Cena is the face of the 2000s, and he is just that constant. Triple H, I mean, it's a hard pick, you know, because Triple H has a very strong run as well, but Cena, no, I mean, I think he's just the man. So
yeah, no, I can't argue with that. Can't argue with it. And that's a tough matchup, man. I mean, they're both like faces of the franchise at that point, you know, in one direction or the other, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you going with?
You're going to love this one. I'm going with Kurt Angle.
All right. No, honestly, either guy makes sense. You know what I mean? Like even if I took Triple H, it makes sense because he equally was, you know, kind of a face as well. I'm just giving the edge to Cena because I think he just made the run. But with Angle, you know, what's your rationale? I
mean, the thing is, like, I just never really loved John Cena, the character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, yeah, he did what he did, and he did it great, and you know, much like Hogan, like he was very good at being that character.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle is to me the complete package of what you want a wrestler to be. Like he could do the sports entertainment stuff as good as anybody, but he could also be a worker that someone like Jim Cornette would be like, "Damn, son, if I had 10 more of him, I'd be selling out all across America."
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
and that's a rare thing. Rare thing.
It is. All right. And then I think we both have this, Shawn Michaels and Rey Mysterio.
Oh, what a hell of a match this would be.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Can you fracking imagine? Oh.
I got to go with Michaels, though. He lays in that super kick.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, no question. I mean, because as good as Ray is.
Yeah.
Michaels just has that extra something, and that's fine. Like, it's just the way it works, you know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you're going with Michaels as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my final is John Cena versus Shawn Michaels. Your final is Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels.
Yes.
So I will go first because I'm very curious to hear how he's going to sort this one out. Michaels, you know, both of these guys have very strong, you know, a decade in the 2000s. Michaels really has almost no business as someone who was in the business in the late 80s, and is just, you know, outperforming guys, you know, half his age, you know, during this decade. And Cena, as we talked about, really became the Hogan of this era. You know, I mean, he really becomes that star that transcends the business and just, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, just rises to the occasion and really becomes that kind of cornerstone, you know, figure for WWE. So as much as I appreciate the work of Michaels and what he did, I got to go with John Cena as my pick for the 2000s wrestling bracket.
And a totally valid choice. I get it. And with the bracket working out differently, I could totally see that being my pick as well.
Yeah.
If this was booked in a different way, perhaps if I had booked it, it might turn out that way. But
all right.
I don't know. For me, this is Angle versus Michaels, and this is tough. I mean, you want to talk about a dream match?
Ah, yeah. Yep.
I'm going with Angle.
Wow.
I did not see this coming whatsoever. What? I'm going to actually go back and look at the bracket that you had me fill out, because I did get all the way through that one. And who did I have winning it? I had Triple H winning the last one.
Did you really?
Just with the way the matchups worked out.
Interesting. Interesting.
And actually,
Jericho beat Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
In yours. I just opened yours up and I was just looking at it real quick. That's interesting.
Which I don't know what I was thinking there. But anyways.
Well, no, I mean, it's reasonable. I wouldn't look at you and say, what were you thinking? It is. As we talked about, there's a lot of quality, talent here who did a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a hard choice.
I think the way that you laid it out, because I was just briefly skimming these, I think you put it into much more context, like the careers and kind of where things were. So that kind of helps me get a better picture of this. Because like I said, I was flying an airplane blind in this thing. I really was not watching or paying attention to wrestling at all. So
nice.
I'm just kind of going with that. So the context that you gave really helps me kind of sort this out. But yeah, I'll go with Angle. I mean,
all right. You're welcome. I'm glad to see I influenced your choices.
Dun, dun, you suck. Dun, dun, you suck. I just love that.
And they got Cena's music where it's like, I can't even do it.
But instantly recognizable. You know? I mean,
yeah. Absolutely.
So good.
All right. So for those keeping track at home, 2 hours later, the man they call Tim picks John Cena for his 2000's wrestling bracket finals to go up against Jake the Snake Roberts and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the final four.
I'm still just amazed you have Jake the Snake coming out of the 80s. That's great.
A great pick.
Oh no, I'm not besmirching it. It just makes me chuckle a little bit.
All right. And Uncle Todd has selected Kurt Angle, who will go up against who and who? I'm
Stone Cold and I believe Hogan.
And Hogan. Okay, gotcha.
So, I mean, actually, in a way, this is my Jake the Snake pick, because you would have, I mean, really, if you're going by this logically, it's Hogan, Stone Cold, and Cena.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, of course, I mean, if you were, again, you're looking at just the big ones, then Lesnar is your fourth.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's Vince's bracket. I guarantee it.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
So, yeah.
All right, sir. Well done. Well, we have adjudicated, it's going to be clocking in at probably 10 hours total here, but we're adjudicating wrestling throughout the decades.
Well, one thing I will tell you is the reason why, if you like to find our podcast on the YouTubes, the reason why I found this out, the reason why some of our episodes take longer to get there is because I have to go and load them up myself. Is because it doesn't generate a video automatically of a podcast over 3 hours.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I have to go in and tomorrow, that's one of my assignments, is I have to go in and get 128 and 129 into videos and probably set my work computer on fire because it's like 8 years old trying to generate those videos. So you're welcome.
Holy moly. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
And another thing.
That all being said, what have you got for and another thing this week, sir?
Mine will be quick because I've done this one before, but and I haven't gotten all the way through. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, but I just got to call back out to the A&E biographies on professional wrestlers, specifically not just the show, but I want to specifically call out this last episode from last night, which let's see, we're recording April 10th, so April 9th, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby.
Yeah, baby, you can't deal with this funk right here. Let me tell you.
What a story, and not just what a story about his career, but really, I'm actually very impressed that they're really kind of taking the Band-Aid off, ripping the Band-Aid off on the ugly parts too. Like clearly Dustin, there's some, he readily admits that he wasn't there for 2 of his 4 kids, when he was building, his career in wrestling. then Cody and his sister and basically the two younger ones, really get to, enjoy time with dad, when he's doing more of the backstage producing stuff after his career's over. And so I was just, I'm happy to see them do that. I was very disappointed in the Jerry Lawler one. There was no mention of his son, Brian Christopher, at all.
Oh, and the scandals having to do with him as well.
Yeah, it was all about his career. And I was, that one, I was very upset. I don't want to say upset, but I was very disappointed.
I wonder why that is, because everybody else, I mean, granted, they kind of go easy on some of them, like with the Yokozuna one. They alluded to the fact that he had, of course, they had to talk about an eating problem, because ultimately it's kind of what killed him is just carrying too much weight. But they really didn't kind of go into that as much. And with Lawler, totally, just it was a total pat on the fanny, sort of thing. Yeah.
So this one on Dusty Rhodes was just is like I said, I haven't gotten through it all the way, but is fantastic. So if you want to learn about hard times and where that all came from and why Uncle Todd has been going into that mode as soon as I set him off, definitely check out the American Dream Dusty Rhodes biography on A&E. It is really, really riveting, really interesting, and you get some great insights into a legend of the business.
Excellent, sir.
And what about you? What is your and another thing?
Well, I'm going to go into a more literary direction here. I've been working my way through this book, and I've been kind of slow going, mostly because, I don't know, the last couple of months, man, I've just, I go into these dry spells with reading where sometimes I hit a couple of difficult books, and I'll either abandon a book and then it takes me a while to get a new one going, or I don't know. There's just times when it seems like I don't make enough time for reading, which kind of stinks because reading is one of my great pleasures. But I've been working my way kind of slowly through this one. This one is, I kind of feel like I need to digest in between sessions. It is Beneath the Underdog, His World as Composed by Mingus. It is Charles Mingus's, the great jazz bassist, composer, band leader, his autobiography. However, the interesting thing about this is, first and foremost, when you're going through the opening of the book, very, very much after the next page after the dedication, you get a disclaimer. Some names in this work have been changed, and some of the characters and incidents are fictitious. So
interesting
in an autobiography. And so the entire thing is essentially told by a third person who is watching Charles Mingus. And it's almost like his higher self, or this personality that is separate from Charles Mingus that lives within his mind. So it enables him to tell his story without ever saying I. He's always talking about Charles instead of being that person. He's telling it from a removed perspective, which leads to some very interesting things. And, dialogue back and forth where you're like, okay, this is either totally imagined or this is like an idealized version or what he remembers or whatever. But it is a wild ride, man. It is a wild freaking ride. And nice. I know of Charles Mingus, of course, and I know of his music, and being a total amateur hour bass player myself, who could never compete with, jazz bassists who I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like, I'm doing addition and subtraction. You're doing calculus, like playing an upright bass with no frets. No, I'm terrified. Thank you. I'll just sit over here and drool watching you. So, for that, it's like, it's interesting, and I know of him, but I never really knew his entire life. So I have not gone and researched any of this. I'm going to finish the book, and then I'm going to go and look at his Wikipedia page and do some more research and be like, okay, what did he make up? How much of this is actually true? And I figure it'll be a nice little detective story afterwards. But I highly recommend it. It is a fun read, but it's kind of intense in spaces. And then it just starts going crazy at sometimes where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm reading like a Hunter S. Thompson book here for, some chapters.
Very cool.
Yeah, cool read.
All right. Check it out.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, members of the Free Range Idiocy congregation, people who had just happened to stumble into the joint, thank you for joining us for this episode. We do certainly appreciate your patronage, your ears, your listening. And, if you have not subscribed, that's the way to join the Free Range Idiocy congregation, ladies and gentlemen. You just have to go to freerangeidiocy.com. That has all of our episodes listed out there. You can download them one at a time. You can actually subscribe right through the Podbean app. If you're at a point in your life where you're like, I don't need any more damn apps, mozzarella sticks or otherwise, don't fret, don't worry, don't you worry yourself at all. We got that. We got you covered,
those
daddy.
Deviled eggs.
We got you covered, daddy. So you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pandora, whatever the heck the Alexis, Amazon one is. I should know this, but they don't do any of themselves any favor by not really branding it. And many other podcast purveyors. You just search for Free Range Idiocy, you will find us, and you can subscribe there through various apps of your choice. You can also find us on YouTube. Full episodes are available on YouTube. We are at Free Range Idiocy there. So you search for us. Once again, you'll find us, and you can hear all the episodes that way. You can also find us on the social medias at Facebook. We are also on Instagram. Both of those are at Free Range Idiocy. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas for shows, offers of outright bribery, feel free to send those to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com.
I'll take it.
Certainly we will. Well, of course you'll take it because you need to buy more deviled eggs.
That's right.
And those steaks ain't cheap, ladies and gentlemen. So you send those to Tim and he'll get back to you forthwith, PDQ, if not sooner. And now at this point in time, only a short, brisk 6 hours after we began this trek, I'm going to hand this over to the less idiotic of the two idiots who run this. I keep on saying lesser idiot, but that doesn't work out any which way. Like, you're taller than me and you're older than me, so I'd be lesser in both of those cases. But the less idiotic, which is
the lesser,
is definitely you. Of the two idiots who run this show, that would be the man they call Tim. But not before I ask the second most important question, all of human history. The first, of course, being what is hip. The second being, the hell did we learn this show?
We've learned the following.
He's getting a dramatic pause, ladies and gentlemen. This ought to be good.
We've learned
he's trying to stretch
Tom,
this into a 4-hour show right now.
And the man they call Tim can babble on incessantly about wrestling. No matter how hard they try to whittle it down, it's going to be a 2-hour show minimum.
Well, you've been reading their entire Wikipedia page.
I was trying to skim through and do it in real time. I had like you said, it's been a week and a day for me. So
your idea of skimming is not my idea, sir.
Good Lord.
Just saying.
We've also learned the Ahsoka trailer is
chef's
just pumping us up, getting us excited because we are going to see finally the Grand Admiral has come back to the Outer Rim. And we're looking forward to what he's going to be doing.
Yep. We
have also learned that the 2000s, as odd of a period as it was for wrestling, as unconventional as it was with Vince having to compete with himself, produced quite a number of very, very talented and really, acclaimed talent in terms of what we had to sort through today in the bracket. It was a lot of difficult choices, but as we've gone through this, it is always been fun to kind of remember back and look at some of the accolades and the careers that these folks have had, because it is a brutal business, and it is interesting to just go back and see the storytelling, the feuds, just everything that's kind of gone into it. And so we have seen this, we have adjudicated, we now have 3 out of the 4 of these decades knocked out, and our next one we will find out who is king of the 2010s, and then finally who is king overall, and we look forward to that. Finally, as we like to close things out here on the range, we do appreciate your listenership. We appreciate the downloads, and especially those of you who have downloaded these last several episodes that have exceeded any sort of taste of time and length in terms of what a podcast should be.
Yes.
We do appreciate it. And as we like to kind of wind things down here, be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another. And, well, it's just better to turn the lights off than to leave them on all night long. Who wants to see that? But do hit the lights on the way out.
Hello, what have we here?
It's like I picked the wrong week. Quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
Did you give me my cheese whiz, boy?
No, I'm serious. You could be in magazines. You could. And not just like Jugs or Creamsicle.
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you.
Call me? She won't call. I'm not drunk.
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
See, now, what I can't understand is how Stone Cold Steve Austin and Taz made it in, and yet, like, Trish Stratus or Lita or CM Punk doesn't make it in.
It was a difficult call, but I had to make it.
I think you're suspect.
Thanks, Chucky.
And I'm only saying that.
Heretofore with.
I'm only saying that so quiet because it is 11:17 p.m. on the East Coast right now, and people in my house are trying to sleep. And
I was going to say, you're not in the office today, are you?
No, I'm trying.
You're not in HQ, so we got to keep this quiet and keep this done.
I am trying to keep peace in my house.
Oh my gosh,
I managed to make it through a major holiday without like fighting, and I'm trying to keep it that way. So it's a very subdued Uncle Todd.
Indeed.
I didn't even make a joke about the Outer Rim, which, I mean, there you go. I mean,
I know I teed that one up for you. I was expecting, a little throwback there.
Somewhere,
and nothing.
Somewhere Jimmy Dice was going, I sense a disturbance in the force. There's an ass joke that somebody didn't just jump on.
Seen, felt, smelt, and dealt, baby.
Exactly. Poked and stoked. Anyways.
Oh, there we go. Added two more.
Now get the hell out of here!